So hey guys, welcome back to my channel. What if Naruto was the destroyer of fate and had Temari as slave? Movie 3. 1 week. Naruto had been in Anbu for 1 week and he already hated the patrol duty. It was bearable when he was on it with someone like Kakashi, Shisui or Yuzuki Yugao, whose codename was Cat. Rest of the members either treated him like some academy student who can't do anything right or they were simply not talkative. So when Naruto's today's guard duty in the Hokage office ended, he was not happy. He had spent the whole day with Ox, Lizard, and Bull, watching the old man doing paperwork. The worst thing was that both Ox and Bull were of the not talkative group and Lizard deemed it too troublesome to talk with him. That's from which clan comes. Of course, this week he has trained almost non-stop. Either alone, with Shisui or with the whole squad to train teamwork and strategies. As Naruto entered the locker room, he went over to where his squad lockers were. He was surprised to see Boar sitting there, obviously waiting for someone. The blonde shrugged and walked over to his locker and opened it. The sound of the locker being opened cut Boar from his thoughts, and the brown-haired Anbu looked to Naruto. "Naruto-san, I was waiting for you," the boar-masked Anbu said. Naruto looked over his shoulder while placing his mask in the locker, which was soon followed by his ninjato. "What can I do for you, Tenzo-senpai?" The blonde asked as he started to take off his gray vest. Tenzo stood up and walked over to the blonde. "I was wondering if you would like to spar, Mokuton only. It would be a nice experience to fight someone who has the bloodline naturally," the black-eyed Anbu stated. Naruto thought about this for a few moments until he decided that training session won't be too bad. "Sure, why not? Lead the way," Naruto said while placing his vest and forearm protectors in his locker and closing it afterward. The two Anbu agents soon found themselves in one of the indoor training ground in the HQ. It was a large room with dirt as ground instead of the usual cobblestone used in the Anbu HQ. The room was illuminated by large lamps that were placed on the ceiling, while there were no windows on the grey walls surrounding the room. The two walked to the middle of the room, 5 meters of distance between the two. Naruto looked over to his senpai and nodded with a smirk. Once Tenzo saw Naruto nod, he took out a kunai and threw it high into the air. There was silence for a moment until the sound of kunai hitting the ground was heard and both Anbu jumped back doing a sequence of hand seals. "Mokuton. Cutting jutsu." Naruto shouted and a spear of a wood shot from his palms towards Tenzo, who ended his hand seals and thrust his hand forward while shouting the jutsu name. "Mokuton. King's Guard." A thick and heavy-looking shield merged out from the brown-haired teen's hand and protected him from the spear. Before he could do anything, the one branch which Naruto shot at Tenzo multiplied into 6 another, shocking the other Anbu. One of the branches was able to penetrate Tenzo's defense and it flew right at the brown-haired teen face. The only thing that saved him was his honed reflexes, but even then the branch was able to cut his cheek slightly, drawing blood. Tenzo quickly cancelled his jutsu and jumped away, saving himself from the 5 spikes made of wood that shot from under him. As soon as Tenzo was in the air, he started doing his hand seals. He extended his hand forward and called. "Mokuton. Great Forest Jutsu." His hand changed into trees and extended towards Naruto. Usually, this technique wasn't used for attack, but Tenzo manipulated the wood so the end of the trees changed into spiky spear-like weapons. The moment before the attack got to him, Naruto palmed the ground Mokuton. Wooden locking wall jutsu. The wood locked Naruto away from Tenzo's attack. As soon as Naruto felt that the boar-masked Anbu stopped his technique, the blonde started doing hand seals. At the same moment Tenzo stopped his technique, he started going through hand seal, but stopped when he felt the chakra input that Naruto was releasing. The brown-haired Anbu knew that if he wanted to avoid the hospital, he had to block this. "Mokuton. Wood Dragon Jutsu." Naruto shouted the name of his most powerful Mokuton Jutsu. The wood that was used to protect him started to morph into a large Chinese dragon. The yellow piercing eyes looking at its prey and with a powerful roar, the dragon shot towards Tenzo. The brown-haired teen had just barely managed to hit the ground with his palm and shout out his jutsu. "Mokuton. Wooden locking wall jutsu." And like previously with Naruto, wood formed around the older Anbu agent just in time to protect him from the large form of the dragon. Tenzo, who was still behind the wall, saw that cracks began to form on the jutsu. Without any hesitation, the brunette knelt and started pumping chakra into the wall, making it repair itself. After about a minute Tenzo felt that Naruto stopped his jutsu, so the older Anbu decided to drop the wall. When Tenzo dropped his jutsu he saw Naruto going through another string of hand seals, but before the blonde could finish, they both heard a voice call to them. "Tenzo, Naruto, we have a mission." They both turned to where the voice came and saw Yugao standing in the door with her hand folded over her chest. "Report tomorrow in the meeting room at 4 in the morning," she said, and vanished in Shunshin. "Well, I think that we should conserve our energy for the mission," Naruto said, gaining a nod from Tenzo. "Well, I will see you tomorrow, thank for the spar," Naruto said, and also vanished in a puff of smoke, closely followed by Tenzo. Next morning, the night went fast for the blonde Anbu, and we find him now awake at 2:45 in the morning. As soon as he woke up, he went to wash his face and teeth, after which he took a shower. When he was done, he went to his wardrobe and took out a white long-sleeved shirt, long black jeans, and a black jacket. After putting it on, he walked over to his nightstand and tied his black-colored hit-8 around his forehead. Shortly after getting dressed, the blonde went to the kitchen to prepare himself breakfast. While doing this, he thought about all he learned about his new mission. So, an A rank, possibly S rank, a mission to Land of Iron, huh? He thought as he started to place his food on a plate. Whole villages being found dead, missing patrolling samurai, on no attacker he continued while starting to eat. Team consisting of dog, crow, cat, Dargan, or, dog is the leader, while boar second in command were his last thought before he concentrated on the food. After 10 minutes, Naruto was done and ready. He walked over to the main door and after putting on his black Anbu shoes, he opened the door and walked outside. As soon as he walked out, a breeze flew over him, making him shiver. Naruto quickly entered his house again and closed the door behind. Damn, is it always this cold so early? He muttered to himself. The blonde walked over to a closet which was near the door and after searching for a moment, he found what he was looking for. 2 minutes later, Naruto with his jacket zipped up and a red scarf around his neck walked towards the secret entry of Anbu HQ. The walk has taken Naruto about 20 minutes since he was living in the clan district and the entry to the HQ was hidden in the civilian part. The blonde walked through the empty street of the civilian side of the village and stopped in front of one of the few 24/7 bars in Konoha. Of course, everyone could enter it and like every bar they could buy alcohol, food and cigarettes, but only those who knew the secret coder phrase could enter the Anbu HQ. To make sure that the coder phrase won't be found out, they change each week and on every Monday, the Anbu captain had to inform his squad about the code through the seal on their shoulders. And to make sure that no one can guess the password, each Anbu squad chooses one member of their squad to act as the password creator who creates the code when their squad's time to give the new code is. Wanna guess who is squad row password creator? Naruto walked over to the bartender and took a sit in front of the man. What can I get you, lad? The old bald man asked the blonde boy who sighed and muttered under his breath. Crimson eyes are better than white ones, Naruto said, causing the bartender to nod and turn around. The man poured sake into a cup and placed it in front of Naruto. Here you go lad, the bald man said. Naruto nodded and took out a single piece of paper which looked like 250 ryo and placed it on the table. Naruto drank the sake, or more like normal water which was only used to look like sake, while the man examined the piece of paper. After a moment the man grunted and laid the money back on the counter. Watch out lad, this is as strong as the toad boss summon strikes, the man muttered absently while cleaning some cups. Naruto nodded and stood up. So the password is Gamabunta, huh? Of course, there is a secondary password given to you by the bartender. The blonde walked to the toilet when he took the second last cabin and closed the door behind him. He then pushed second left brick, which also happened to be the 7th from down. As soon as he did this, he pushed chakra into his tattoo on his left shoulder and tapped the door behind him twice. As soon as he did this, the wall in front of him started to move downwards, without making any sound. Naruto entered the, what seemed like a black tunnel, which was lightened when the wall behind him closed. As soon this happened, Naruto started walking down the tunnel towards the Anbu HQ. Of course, there is a quicker way to enter the HQ, but this included walking up the whole way to the Hokage's monument's top. Wait, he could have sunshine there. Meh. He still has some time. Soon a large steel door come in Naruto's line of vision. In front of the door were standing 2 Anbu guards. Without any words between them, Naruto took of the left sleeve of his jacket and lifted his shirt, showing his Anbu tattoo. One of the guards pushed chakra into his tattoo and Naruto's, and both the guards' tattoos started to glow a bit. One of the guards nodded to Naruto and opened the door for him. This was also another ability of the tattoo. When Anbu pushed chakra into his own, all others' agents' nearby tattoos would glow, showing that they were real things, not fakes. The blonde walked through one of the many lounges for Anbu, which was a large room used for Anbu to rest before or after the mission. The blonde couldn't help but smirk when he saw hawk, lion, monkey and snail mask Anbu in the room, complaining that they had to do the Hokage office guard duty again. Naruto left the room and entered a long corridor with doors on left and right. The blonde walked for a few moments until he stopped in front of the door with a sign for row. The blonde entered it and was surprised to see Shisui already in the locker room. Yo, Shisui, the blonde greeted while walking over to his locker. Shisui gave Naruto a grin before starting to put on his arm guards. Hello, Naruto Kohai, the Uchiha said with a grin, only to get in the shoulder by Naruto. Hoi. You should show me some respect. The Uchiha stated while putting on his vest. Of course, his grin got wider when he saw Naruto's right eye twitch. Oh, shut up already and tell me something about the mission, the blonde said whilst taking off his jacket and shirt. Shisui strapped his ninjato on his back as he started to explain their mission. There have been large death count in the last 3 weeks in Iron Country, Shisui said, confusing Naruto who put on his black Anbu shirt. Shouldn't be this like a C rank or a B rank mission? I mean bandits or some random missing nin? Naruto asked as he took off his black jeans. He raised an eyebrow when he saw Shisui shake his head. That's not it. In the mission request, Mifune, the samurai general of Land of Iron, says that he has sent several units of trained samurai to kill whoever does this. No one came back, Shisui said as he took out his crow mask and placed it the side of his face and used chakra to hold it there. Were they able to recover at least one body? The blonde questioned curiously as he put on his black gloves soon followed by the armed guards. Shisui closed his locker and sat on a bench next to the lockers. Yeah, the report says that on one night, exactly when the clock tower started to ring at midnight, 2 bodies appeared a few meters in front of the main gate, the Uchiha said, and watched as Naruto finished putting on the second armed guard. The blonde stayed quiet for a moment in which he put on his vest and tied the 3 pouches to his back. When he was about to grab his ninjato, his hand froze in the air. Have they any report about how the bodies looked? Naruto finally asked and grabbed his ninjato by the sheath. The dark-haired teen nodded, even though Naruto couldn't see it, and closed his eyes. Yeah, they say that one of the bodies, a samurai, had several non-fatal injuries which looked like cuts from a sword, a big and thick sword, Shisui said as he opened his eyes and watched as Naruto reached for his mask after strapping a kunai pouch on his right thigh. Sound like someone tortured the poor man before killing him, Naruto said, and placed his mask on side of his face, the same way Shisui did. The said Uchiha snorted. Yeah, but the second person got worse of the two, the teen said as Naruto closed his locker and took a seat across him. Oh? Naruto asked with a raised brow. Uchiha shrugged. I don't know about you, but being tortured with a sword is better than being used as a chewing toy by some animal with razor-sharp teeth, especially when you are a defenseless civilian or a major of the city in this case, Shisui said, causing the blonde to wince. The two spent some time talking until Tenzo came, soon followed by Yugao and Kakashi, who came about 2 minutes before 4. The 5 Anbu then walked to one of the free lounges where Kakashi once more summarized the mission request. 5 minutes later the Anbu squad consisting of Captain Dog, second in command Boar, Cat, Crow, and Dragon, were exiting the village through the main gate, seeing how they had a perfectly straight line towards Land of Iron. 16 hours later, Squad Row has been running for the whole day to enter Land of Iron as soon as possible. Only after this long distance have they decided to call it an end for today, seeing how Shisui, Naruto, and Yugao were very tired, but after running for so long at the pace that both Kakashi and Tezno had set up wasn't a huge surprise. The group of 5 has decided to make a camp on one of the crowns of the huge trees, seeing how the whole being was surrounded by these trees. The 4 older Anbu were about to begin to eat their ration bars, well until they felt the smell of food. Kakashi, Yugao, Tenzo, and Shisui turned to look at Naruto who was grinning at the bowl of ramen which was in front of him. Feeling the stares on him, Naruto looked over to his teammates only for his right eye to twitch when he saw the 4 hungry looks his teammates were giving him. Haven't you 4 prepared your food for the mission? The blonde asked rhetorically, knowing very well the answer. Seeing how his teammates were looking at him with somewhat pleading looks, the blonde took out a single scroll from his pouch. With a sigh, Naruto unsealed another 4 scroll and gave them to his teammates, who quickly unsealed the content only to grin when they saw 4 bowls of fresh, steaming, delicious ramen in front of them. It didn't take too long for everyone to dig into their meals, which were followed by a bowl of rice with some teriyaki chicken. Soon the 5 Anbu sealed the bowls back and gave the seals back to Naruto. Damn, Naruto, where did you get this? It was delicious. Yugao exclaimed as she unsealed her sleeping bag. The blonde grinned and scratched the back of his head. Well, I have found something akin to a hobby in cooking, so I decided to make some proper food for us, because I knew that no of you would have anything to eat, the blonde said as he placed his ninjato next to his sleeping bag. His pouches soon followed as the blonde flipped on his sleeping bag. The blonde lied there in silence with Tenzo on his left and Yugao on his right. Meanwhile, the 3 rested, Kakashi and Shisui went to check out the surrounding area. As the blonde thought about the mission, a thought struck him. Yugao-senpai, Naruto stated, making Yugao look at the young blonde Anbu. I was wondering, wasn't there some law that made ninja unable to enter the Land of Iron? The blonde asked. Yes, there is a law that was signed by all 5 Kage and the leader of Land of Iron, that Land of Iron will stay neutral should any conflict would break out, but for this, they requested that shinobi nations leave Land of Iron alone, the purple-haired girl answered, confusing Naruto slightly. Then shouldn't we leave Land of Iron alone and let them handle this thing by themselves? The blonde asked as he took his mask and started to inspect the painting once again. This became a sort of habit to the blonde, whenever he was thinking about something, he would inspect the mask. His eyes turned to Yugao who giggled, making Naruto raise an eyebrow. Because they don't want to get involved in wars doesn't mean that they don't hire ninjas sometimes, like now, because they need specialists which they lack, the Kenjutsu mistress answered, gaining a nod of understanding from Naruto. Next day, noon, the 5 ninjas were running at a more relaxed pace today, and after 2 hours they finally got to the border between the Land of Fire and Land of Iron. As the weather started to change from the sunny and warm country into the cold and cloudy weather where the snows rain the whole year. When the squad saw 5 samurai waiting for them, they slowed down and walked towards them. At half of the way towards the samurai, everyone heard a puff of smoke and they turned to where the sound came from. Behind the Anbu, Naruto was standing with a scroll in his left hand and a red scarf in the right one. Everyone looked puzzled at him when he put the scroll away and started to tie the scarf around his neck. Naruto looked at his teammates and blinked in confusion, but one could see it because of the porcelain mask. What? Naruto asked when he saw the 4 Anbu looking at him. Tenzo was about to tell something, but Kakashi beat him to it. No, nothing dragon, Kakashi said, turning around and walking towards the samurai. The 4 others Anbu followed, and when Kakashi got close enough to Shisui, he whispered. So, you haven't told him that these shirts can be warmed up by a little bit of chakra? The dog mask Anbu asked. Crow chuckled and embarrassed and scratched his mask, where his right cheek would be. Nope, kinda forgot, the Uchiha answered quietly, and Kakashi swore that he could see Shisui grinning under his mask. Well, he could read the instructions. Oh, well, the silver-haired Anbu muttered with a grin. The 5 Anbu soon met with the 5 samurai who asked who they were, and after Kakashi showed them the mission scroll, the squad was let go. Kakashi decided that running now towards the capital of Land of Iron would be easier than it would be at night when the snow's heavier. During the next 2.5 hours, nothing happened. The group was running in silence to come to the capital as fast as possible. After arriving, they were ushered into a castle where they met Mifune in his office. So you 5 are the one who Hokage Dono sent? Mifune asked as he leaned back in his seat, watching the squad of Anbu sitting in front of him. Yes. If it is possible, we have some questions that might help us, Kakashi stated. He was decided to be the speaker of the group. Mifune nodded his head and motioned the dog-masked Anbu to ask the questions. Do you know which villages were attacked first? Kakashi asked. Mifune stayed quiet for a few moments until he nodded and placed a scroll from his desk. The scroll was the map of Land of Iron with every village on it. Mifune pointed at a village that was in the north of the land. Yes, this was the first village that we lost the contract with, Mifune said, and pointed at the ocean that was a little above the village. The only problem is that the only way to get to the village is to pass many border patrols, by which we are constantly informed about everything. The only way that they could get there unseen is either some underground or from the ocean, which we also patrol with ships, the general said, and looked at the Anbu, only to see that Tenzo was taking notes. That is surely unsettling. Can you show us which villages were already destroyed and in which order? Kakashi requested as he said Tezno to take notes on this as well. Mifune pointed at the first village and then moved right at east. These 3 villages were destroyed in 3 days, he then trailed his finger even further to the right. This one followed next, he then pointed at one village that was at the north coast. This village was destroyed yesterday. When we heard that someone is destroying our villages, we send a messenger to notify all villages evacuation. He died before he could say anything, the old samurai said. The 6 persons were in silence, the only sound was the pencil writing in a small notepad. What about Haseomi village? Asked a voice. All turned towards the voice and saw that it was Naruto who asked. Mifune looked at the map and indeed the Haseomi village, that was on the right side of the first village, wasn't reported to be destroyed. Yes, this is the only village that is still intact in the north. We tried to send messengers but no one was able to reach the village, not a samurai or a messenger bird, Mifune answered. If you would have to guess, then how long will it take for Haseomi to be attacked? Kakashi asked as he started to formulate a plan of action. The old general took out another scroll from his desk and showed it to the silver-haired Anbu. If our calculations are correct, then the attacker needs a week to reoccupy before the attacks. At least it is what happened between the first and second village, which was confirmed between fourth and fifth village, Mifune said, gaining a nod from Kakashi. But, the Anbu turned to look back at Mifune, who closed his eyes for a moment. That might be because of the larger than usual amount of samurai in the first village. And if we are correct, then when the fourth village has been attacked, a group of about 20 samurai was right there, he said. So you think that they need this 1 week to regroup and rest after a fight? Kakashi asked and got a nod from Mifune. Is there a chance that your samurai got in their way today? The silver-haired man questioned, and this time the general shook his head. No, I am sure that we had no samurai in this village in the past 3 days, the old samurai state. Kakashi was quiet for a moment until he nodded to Mifune. Thank you for answering, I think that I have a plan for now, the dog-masked Anbu said and turned to his teammates. We will do the following, we will rest for 2 hours and then we will continue, Kakashi said and turned to Mifune. I hope you don't mind. The silver-haired Anbu asked. Not in the least, I have already prepared a room for you if you plan to stay overnight, the samurai said, and Kakashi turned back to his team. If we go at Chunin speed then we should arrive at Hazeomi before the sun goes down, the captain said, and got 4 nods in response. Then let's get some rest. 4 hours later, Hazeomi. The trip to the village has taken around 2 hours for the Anbu squad since they weren't rushing there as fast as they did to Land of Iron. The team was now walking up a small hill after which was their destination with Kakashi leading the group. Behind him were Naruto on the left, Yugao in the middle and Shisui on the right. Behind the three was Tenzo, watching their backs. Suddenly the group abruptly stopped when Kakashi froze in mid-step. Something wrong, Taicho? Yugao asked as she looked at their captain, who only pointed forward. Being curious, the other 4 Anbu broke from the formation and gasped when they saw what waited for them behind the hill. About a kilometer from the hill, the Hazeomi village burning houses illuminated the night sky. As the squad watched they couldn't help but have only one thought, which Shisui abruptly voiced. "I am possible," the Uchiha muttered as they watched as one of the higher buildings collapsed to the ground and exploded in a show of fire. Kakashi suddenly jerked and looked over his shoulder to his teammates. "Let's go, maybe we are not too late." Dog shouted and started to run towards the burning village, closely followed by his team. As the team neared the village, they heard screams from various directions. Not even looking at his team, Kakashi started to give orders. Team A, check out the screams on left, Team B, check the screams on the right. I will see if there is anyone alive in the center of the village. Kakashi barked, and the Anbu squad took their respective part of village. Naruto and Tenzo rushed as fast as possible towards where they heard a loud cry of pain. As they neared, they saw a wooden house which hasn't been lit on fire yet. The two nodded to each other, and Tenzo rushed through the door while Noro jumped through the window. It didn't take longer than a second to see what was happening inside, and without waiting for any second, Naruto made 4 quick hand seals and crimson lighting, started to run around his right hand. Suzaku. The blonde Anbu shouted as his right hand cut cleanly through the attacker's torso, destroying the heart in a second. The blonde heard a roar on his left and out of the corner of his vision, he saw a beast jump at him with a bared fang. Before the beast could try to bite the blonde it was cut in two by Tenzo who used chakra to make his ninjado's cutting power stronger. Now that Naruto couldn't see or sense any danger nearby, he looked around. He was standing in a living room with a corpse at his feet. 2 or 3 meters to his left was lying another corpse, a male, and next to the man was lying a corpse of a woman. Both of them looked to be in early 30. The blonde looked if there was someone else in the room and was shocked when he saw a girl near his age sitting on her knees and looking at the adults' bodies with wide eyes. Naruto turned to Tenzo, who already was looking at the blonde, and nodded to the older man. Seeing this, Tenzo nodded back and walked out of the rooming house to try and sense if there are any more survivors. Naruto walked to the girl and shook her by her shoulder after seeing that she was still alive and he couldn't see any wound on her. "Hey there," Naruto said as softly as he could. The girl's hollow eyes traveled slowly to Naruto and then her gaze slowly moved to where the attacker was. Before Naruto could react, the girl leaped forward and hugged the blonde fiercely, as if her life depended on it. The blonde placed his right hand on her back and started to rub her back while whispering soothing words to her. After a minute, Naruto pulled back of the hug and looked at the girl. Now that he had a good look on her, he couldn't help but think that in a few years she would be really beautiful. The girl had pale skin, gray eyes, and shaggy black hair that reached her. Her attire consisted of a simple knee-length white dress, a light cardigan, and brown boots. "So, what is your name?" Naruto asked as he started to lift the girl to her feet. She was hesitant for a moment and answered first when she was on her feet. Mikasa, Ackerman Mikasa," she said quietly, while Naruto wiped her tears away. The blonde nodded and started to let her outside. "I shouldn't be doing this," Naruto told himself. "Well, my name is Namikaze Naruto, nice to meet you, Mikasa-chan," he said and ushered her to go outside. When they exited the house, Naruto looked back at Mikasa. "Well, I must take you away from here because it will be dangerous here in a moment," Naruto stated. Mikasa's red and puffy eyes widened as she hugged him once more. "No. Please don't leave me," she pleaded. Naruto lifted her chin so he could look into her gray eyes. "Don't worry, I will meet you later, okay?" he asked and the girl slowly nodded. Naruto made a single hand seal and a shadow clone puffed into existence next to him. "Alright, Mikasa-chan, my clone here will take you away for now," Naruto said as he pulled back from the girl. The clone walked over to Mikasa and lifted her in bridal style and as he was about to shuncheon away, Mikasa shouted. "Wait. See, can I please see your face?" she asked quietly while Naruto sighed in his mind. "I really shouldn't be doing this," he said to himself and pulled the dragon mask off so Mikasa could see his face. The blonde gave her a soft smile and with a wave, the clone used Shunshin to disappear. As soon as the replica got away, Naruto placed his mask back and turned to look at the roof of the house and saw a boar. I have checked the right side of the village, no one is left alive, Tenzo commented, and Naruto nodded with a sigh. The blonde jumped then at the roof to stand next to Tenzo. Let's head to dog. I am sure that Team B has already finished, the blonde prodigy stated, and the two shunshine toward the center of the village. The two Mokuton users arrived in the middle of the village, which turned out to be a large marketplace, but every stand has been burned and collapsed or was on its way to do so. When they looked around, they saw Kakashi standing with Team B a few meters away from 11 persons. They quickly made their way towards their squad. Kakashi looked at them from the corner of his eye and muttered. Perfect timing, and his attention turned back to the 11 persons. When Naruto looked at them now, he saw that 5 of the persons looked identically. Each of them was an adult male with tan skin and average height. They all were bald and had pitch black eyes. They had no shirts on, only shoulder places made of black metal. They all were wearing dark brown pants and had shin guards made of black metal as well. They all had a pair of simple brown boots. What shocked Naruto was that each of them had a long bone sticking out from each of their forearms, which were formed like spears and were long enough to extend further than their hands. Another thing was their faces, or more exactly their mouths. Each of them had a disturbing grin on their face, but the worst thing was their teeth, or more exactly the razor-sharp bones that replaced the teeth. But let's not forget about this one bone that stuck out of their head and looked like it could cut off a head without any problem. His eyes then turned to another 5 persons, or in this case beasts. Each of those, Bone Man had a beast on their right side that looked like a wolf. The problem with the beasts was that they all were made of bones and were bigger than him. The blonde esteemed that if the beast would stand on their hinder legs, then the beast would be at least 2.5 meters high. As Naruto looked to the beast face, he saw that it looked like a normal wolf's. The only differences were that it also had bones instead of teeth and that the eyes of the beast were full crimson, no pupil or sclera. Behind each of the beasts were long tails made of purely sharp bones. Naruto assumed that the only weak point of the beast is the face or the neck, which also looked unprotected by the bones. The young Anbus eyes then wandered to the last person of the group, and Naruto unconsciously moved his hand towards his kunai holster. This man was huge. He was easily 2.5 meters high, and his large muscles were displayed because he has no shirt on himself. He also had no shoulder plates, instead, he had 5 sharp bones sticking out of his shoulders. Naruto saw that the man didn't have bones sticking out of his forearms, instead, he had a forearm protector made of bones. On each of his cheek were 3 red circles painted next to each other in a line. He was wearing black shorts, and once again he had no shin guards, but he had a layer of bones protecting his shins. Naruto saw something picking over the man's right and left shoulder, and on closer inspection, Naruto saw that it was handles of swords, made of bone. The man also had a large grin on his face with bones on in the place of his teeth. What unsettled Naruto even more was the man's eyes burned a very light shade of blue, but his eyes moved like a fire. The dragon mask Anbu didn't catch up what Kakashi and the big man were talking about, but Naruto was sure as hell that it didn't go right because the 5 bone man and beast rushed at squad row while the big man stood back and watched. Naruto jumped back as a beast tried to bite him, and while he was mid-air he took out his ninjato and blocked a swipe at his head by the bone man. Naruto ducked when the man tried to slash him with his other hand and launched a sweeping kick at the man, but had to quickly retreat his foot and jumped back to his feet when the bone man jumped up and the beast tried to bite Naruto's leg off. Dragon quickly made a hand seal and appeared 15 meters away from his 2 opponents. The blonde swallowed hard and prepared for the fight because he was sure that it wouldn't be easy and his teammates wouldn't be able to help him this time. But Shisui, the Uchiha, activated his Sharingan and thanks to it was able to predict what his opponent would do. Crow saw the bone man jump into the air and try to pierce Shisui with both of his blades. Luckily for Shisui, the man was high enough for the Uchiha to roll under his feet. As soon as he finished his roll, he saw the beast jumping at him with its maw open. Shisui moved forward at an amazing speed and was able to catch the beast by the neck and the 2 hinder legs. He was about to break the neck of the beast, but he saw the corner of his eye that bone man was running at him with a right wide sweep. Deciding to use the man, Shisui threw the beast at the bone man's already outstretched hand. The young Uchiha narrowed his eyes when he saw that the bone man's blade didn't even leave a scratch on the beast bone's armor. The Uchiha made several hand seals at neck-breaking speed and jumped high into the air. Hain. Great Dragon Fire Jutsu. He shouted while a horse-sized head of a Chinese dragon flew at the 2 bone fighters. Suddenly a large explosion occurred and pushed Shisui to use body replacement to avoid getting hit. The Uchiha replaced himself with leftovers of a stand and hid behind another stand that was still big enough to hide him. He peeked over the stand and his eyes widened when the beast sniffed the air twice and then turned to where the Uchiha was. Before Shisui could do anything, the bone man opened his eyes and a large quantity of orange fire erupted from his mouth and flew at the black-haired teen. But Tenzo, when he saw the bone fighters rush at his squad, he wasted no time and started making a sequence of hand seals. He ended with the snake seal and root erupted from the ground and started to attack the bone man and his beast. Tenzo's two enemies weren't destroying the roots fast enough, making them unable to engage Tenzo, but at the same time, the boar masked Anbu agent knew that prolonged use of this jutsu would drain his chakra reserves too fast, making him useless later in the fight. He hoped that he would have enough chakra to analyze the bone fighter's fighting style so that he would be prepared to fight them. An even better version was that the bone man or his beast would do a mistake, enabling Tenzo to catch them in the binding of his jutsu. If the second option would come true, those roots would be almost unbreakable and would suck out the bone man's chakra out until Tenzo let him, which he wouldn't do, or until he dropped dead because of the lack of chakra. Of course, the boar-masked Anbu knew that it was only wishful thinking, and sooner or later he would have to engage the bone fighter and his beast in a real fight. Oh, well, even Anbu were allowed to dream. With Yugao, the purple-haired woman was engaging the bone man in a heated and dangerous kenjutsu battle. She used her ninjato to block a left swing, then moved her head to the side to avoid a thrust by the bone man's other hand. She slashed at the bone man's outstretched hand, trying to cut through it, but the man surprised her by catching her blade in his hand. Yugao tried to push chakra into her ninjato, but she was unable to do it. Her eyes widened and she jumped back without her sword, avoiding the beast's large fangs. The Anbu agents made a few hand seals and exhaled a water bullet. Suiton. Water bullet jutsu. 3 orbs of water flew at the bone man, who was able to jump over the first one and then move his body in the air to avoid getting hit. Fortunately for the cat-masked Anbu, the bone man was unable to dodge in his position and the third water bullet hit him dead on, sending him back a few meters, crashing into the rests of a stand. Yugao was about to make another seal sequence but had to sidestep as the beast came flying at her. Seeing an opening, Yugao sent a roundhouse kick at the beast's torso but gasped when her feet connected with the bone armor. She backflipped when the beast lunged at her legs. As soon as her feet touched the ground, she saw the beast's maw flying at her. Yugao decided to use the beast's momentum against it and she redirected the beast behind her with her right hand. She then used substitution with a rumble that was lying next to her sword. In the same moment, she gripped her ninjato, she had to roll to the side to avoid an attack from the bone man. Their teamwork is superb, I need to separate them, she thought, and substituted once more when the beast came jumping at her from behind. With Kakashi, when the silver-haired Anbu saw the bone man and beasts attack his teammates, he quickly reached for his kunai holster and took out of the throwing knives while leaning forward to meet his two opponents. Kakashi's kunai met the bone man's bone sword in a display of sparks which illuminated the night sky. The Anbu moved his head backward to avoid a slash from his opponent's second blade. Dog's hand shot out to the outstretched hand and with a quick twist, he placed the bone man's hand under his armpit in a joint lock. Kakashi's kunai flew forward the bone man's face, and as he was about to kill the man, Kakashi's sixth sense started to scream at him. The silver-haired Anbu placed his feet behind the bone man's, and with a pull, the two changed their places. In the same instant the two changed places, the beast's fangs dig hard into the bone man's right shoulder. Rog. The bone man roared but was silenced when Kakashi plucked his kunai into the man's throat. The Anbu quickly leaped back and made several hand seals and the palmed the ground. Oten. Swamp of the underground jutsu. Kakashi said, and the ground in front of him turned into a deep swamp which made for the beast impossible to move. The Anbu made another set of hand seals and shouted. Kaiten. Great fireball jutsu. The orb of fire ignited the swamp, making it explode into a large inferno which burned the bone man's body and the beast in seconds. Kakashi looked over to his teammates and was about to rush when he had to substitute himself with a brick. From where he appeared, he watched wide-eyed as the brick was sliced perfectly in two by one of the big man's swords. The blue-eyed man then looked at where Kakashi was and pointed his sword at the Anbu. Well, if his earlier attack was any indication, then I hope that the rest of my team will finish quickly, the silver-haired Anbu thought as he took out his own ninjato and prepared for a hard battle. With Naruto was fighting the duo for about 2 minutes by now, and neither he or the bone duo was able to land a decent shot. The young Anbu was only able to land a few cuts on the bone man and beast, while they in return were able to nick his left shoulder slightly, making it bleed. Besides this, Naruto had a few cuts here or there, but was still able to fight at his top. The blonde blocked another double overhead attack by the bone man and tried to kick the man into his gut with his left foot. Unfortunately, 5 short spiky bones came flying at his kicking leg from the leg. Not wanting to get injured, Naruto pushed with his right foot and jumped high enough to avoid getting an injury. While his foot was in midair, Naruto forgot that the bone man was still next to him, waiting for such an opportunity. When Naruto was in the air, he had no way of dodging the incoming attack from the bone man's right blade because he already used his ninjato to block the left blade. In the last second, before the blade would cut into his temple, Naruto's left palm shot out and was able to redirect the attack to his chest. While he was redirecting the attack, he bent his torso backward so the cut would be shallow. Luckily for the blonde Anbu, the bone man's blade only grazed his vest, leaving a minor cut in it. As Naruto's feet touched the ground, the blonde made a single hand seal with his left hand. Shadow clone jutsu, he muttered, and 3 clones puffed into existence next to him. 2 of them instantly pointed their ninjados at the bone man and rushed at him, while the original and one of the clones jumped back. Naruto nodded to his clone, who nodded back and rushed at the beast with his ninjado. The copy jumped into the air and launched an overhead slash with the blade, which was blocked by the beast's sharp tail. The beast then lunged at the replica with its jaw open, and as it was about to kill it, the clone used the handle of his ninjado to hit the beast into its chin, knocking it back to the ground. Before the beast could stand up, Root shot out of the ground, ensnaring the beast and disabling it of moving. The clone then sliced the beast's head cleanly up by the neck down and turned to its creator. Naruto nodded to his clone, and it puffed away. The blonde Anbu then turned back to the bone man just in time to see the man kill his second clone by slicing its head off. "Alright, only one left," Dragon muttered under his breath. But Shisui, the Ichi had ducked under the bone man's right slash, blocked the beast's tail with kunai which was in his right left hand, and parried the bone man's thrust with his ninjado which was in the other hand, and launched a chakra-enhanced kick towards the bone na's torso. Shisui grinned when he heard at least 3 ribs break from the kick as the man flew away. He then sidestepped the beast which tried to catch his throat and slashed with his ninjado at the beast's throat. Crow overestimated the beast's speed, and instead of cutting the neck, he cut at the beast's jaw, making the beast roar as blood splattered under its head. The Uchiha pushed his chakra into his blade, and with a quick sweep of ninjado the beast lost all 4 of its limbs. Shisui rushed at the bone man as he knew that it was only a matter of seconds before the beast would die out of blood loss. Besides, without its limbs, the beast was useless in battle. The Uchiha made several hand seals while he was running and took a deep breath. He then took out 5 kunai with explosive tags and threw them at the bone man while exhaling. Futen. Gale Force Jutsu. A sphere of air shot from his mouth and made the kunai fly even faster, almost too fast for an eye to see. The bone man, who just got up from the ruined stand, saw the incoming projectiles and started to generate fire in his throat. With a roar, fire shot from his mouth, but this was also the time that Shisui shot his Futen Jutsu. Thanks to the wind, the fire from Bone Man was twice bigger, and as it connected with the kunai, the 5 explosive tags detonated not 2 meters from the Bone Man. Shisui had to cover his eyes as the raging fire swallowed the Bone Man, leaving no trace that he was even there. "Try to survive this, bitch," he muttered to himself with a grin under his mask. Suddenly an explosion on his left gained his attention, and when he looked over there, he saw Kakashi being kicked out of the smoke while his arms were in an X-guards. Seeing his captain crash into a collapsed stand, Shisui was sure that he was in for a fight of his life. Not wasting any time, he shunshined over to Kakashi to support his captain. But Tenzo, it turned out that dreams sometimes came true. The bone man Tesno was fighting made a large mistake, and the Anbu was able to capitalize on it, catching the bone man with his almost unbreakable roots. He turned his attention back to the beast. The brown-haired Anbu took out his ninjado and rushed at the beast and made a diagonal slash at the beast, which jumped back and shot out 6 short bones at Boar, who quickly moved his blade to block them. One of the blades was able to overcome Tenzo's defense and dig into the Anbu's left thigh, making him grunt. Tenzo slashed at the beast once more, and when it jumped back, he quickly took the bone out and threw it at the beast. The projectile bounced off the beast's armor while it rushed at Tenzo from his right and jumped at his shoulder. The Anbu used his forearm guard and placed it between the beast's jaw, blocking the attack. Unfortunately for Tenzo, some of the beast's fangs were longer than the rest and they dug into his flesh. Using the opportunity, the Anbu caught the beast by its neck with his left hand, and with a quick twist, the beast dropped to the ground dead. Tenzo sighed and took out bandages from one of his pouches and started to tie them around his thigh first. When he did that, he started to bandage his right forearm, but before he could tie it, a blade shot from his chest, making him gasp in pain. He looked over his shoulder while blood started to escape from his mouth. What he saw made his eyes widen. The bone man was able to destroy his roots and sneak on him while he was occupied. Damn, he thought and closed his eyes. The bone man roared in triumph when it felt Tenzo to limp. The triumph was short-lived when a ninjado erupted from its heart, killing it instantly. Yeah, I love mud clones," Tenzo said as he watched the killed Tenzo to turn into mud. "I think the captain and Crow could use a hand," he muttered to himself. But Yugao, the Kinjutsu mistress, smirked under her mask as she watched as the light of life vanished from the beast's eyes. She turned around and prepared for the 3rd or maybe 4th round against the bone man. While Yugao had only minor cuts and a small scratch on her mask, exactly under her right eye, the bone man had many cuts around his body, a large gash on his left eye, his left eye was missing, and blood was pouring from his left eye socket, his right blade was destroyed, and his right ear was missing. The purple-haired Anbu didn't know how the bone man was still able to fight, but she placed it under his jeans or something. She shrugged and prepared to finish the fight because she saw Tenzo rushing to where Kakashi was, meaning that the captain could need some help. Pat rushed at the Bone Man and blocked his left swing with her ninjato and blocked his roundhouse kick with her knee. She jumped up and delivered a snap kick to his chin, making him stumble back. Seeing the opening, Yugao thrust her blade forward and it reached the target perfectly. She kicked the Bone Man's body off her blade and wiped the blood on his pants. She took a deep breath and shunshined away. But Naruto jump-kneed the Bone Man into the gut and when he doubled over, the blonde jumped over the Bone Man back and took out a kunai. He thrust his kunai in the back of the Bone Man's head, but Naruto's opponent was able to catch the blonde's wrist and kick him away. Naruto rolled on the group after he was kicked away. As he slowly rose to his feet he observed as the Bone Man reached for a kunai which is lodged in the man's left shoulder. The blonde Anbu was able to cut off the Bone Man's blades, but shortly after this, his opponent kicked his Nijato away. Since then the two has been in a taijutsu fight, which was going slowly, but if the injuries were any indication, then Naruto had an edge. The Dragon Mask agent's only serious injury was the gas at the side of his left arm. Of course, it would heal, but not soon. Sometime after Naruto has awakened Mokuton he has observed that his healing factor didn't rise like it did on the day he had awakened his bloodline. Kakashi has guessed that if Naruto would want to keep his healing, he would have to learn how to gather natural chakra, but they decided to learn this at a later date when Naruto was older. Coming back, the Bone Man had a hole from kunai in his left shoulder, making him unable to use it. Naruto was also able to make a deep slash at the man's right collarbone, but despite this, the Bone Man was able to use his right arm. Suddenly Naruto used his left forearm to block a spinning kick from the Bone Man's left foot. Naruto tried to hit the man in the back of his head, but the Bone Man dropped down and placed his good hand on the ground. He kicked up with his right foot and launched a raising kick to Naruto's chin. The blonde was able to bring his arms in an X-guard, but the force of the kick was still able to send him in the air. The Bone Man wasted no time and jumped after Naruto, who smirked under his mask and made a single hand seal with his left hand. Mokuton. Great Forest Jutsu. Naruto's right hand turned into spikes made of wood and impaled the Bone Man who was unable to pivot himself in the air to avoid the counterattack. Naruto fell to the ground and panted slightly while his hand turned back to normal. The blonde smirk got slightly bigger as he watched as the Bone Man's body fell to the ground lifeless. The blonde straightened his back and sighed. As he was about to go help his team, he heard a shout from behind. Watch out. He turned around just in time to catch Tenzo. Naruto skidded 2 meters back and then helped the older Anbu to his feet. Are you alright, senpai? Naruto asked as he watched Tenzo to take deep breaths. Could be better. Let's go, Dragon, Or said, and the two rushed towards the center of the marketplace. When the two Anbu appeared in the battlefield, Kakashi sent a pulse of chakra through his tattoo to signalize to regroup. Crown, Cat and Dog used Shunshin to appear next to their tattoo teammates, each of them was breathing hard. What's the situation, Captain? Naruto asked as he took out a kunai. Kakashi took a deep breath. He is fast, very fast and strong too. His aim is amazing and from what I managed to see, he can shoot out fire from his mouth and limbs. Stay focused the whole time, he said and then jumped behind the 4 other Anbu. Maneuver B2, he commanded. Hi. The 4 Anbu started doing hand seals at a rapid pace, and Tenzo was the first who finished. He palmed the ground and shouted. Doten. Mud Dragon Jutsu. A large brown dragon rose in front of the brown-haired Anbu. Next to him, Shisui finished his hand seals and took a deep breath. Pain. Great Fire Dragon Jutsu. He shouted and breathed out a large orb of fire that took the form of a Chinese dragon. The Uchiha was followed by Yugao. Suiten. Water Dragon Jutsu. She spat out a large volume of water that took the form of a dragon. Not a second later Naruto also finished his hand seals. Raiden. Great Thunder Dragon Jutsu. He cried out and from his palms came out white lighting that took the form of a large dragon. The 4 Jutsu then flew at their opponent. Jutsu before the 4 Jutsu hit, the 4 Anbu shouted out in unison. Collaboration Jutsu. The 4 Elemental Disaster. The 4 dragons merged into one which was at least 5 times bigger than the 4 dragons and had gold-yellowish color. The jutsu exploded upon coming in contact with something. The explosion pushed the 4 Anbu, who had to cover their faces with their arms, back as they used chakra to keep them from being thrown away. When the explosion ceased and the dust started to flying away, they all heard a voice that froze them on the spot. Jigakuhi Shaiki. Inferno Cage, the voice was gruff and cold, despite this, the 4 Anbu could hear the hate behind it. When the dust completely vanished, the 4 Anbu could see a square made of crimson flames around where their opponent. The fire dissipated, showing that their enemy didn't have even a scratch on them. Frustrated, Shisui shouted out. What the fuck are you? Of course, he didn't think that their opponent would answer, so naturally, they all were surprised to hear the cold and ruthless voice again. "My name is Haraka, master of the Jigoku Shiki, the Hellfire style and a proud Takurin," he said as pointed at the four Anbu. "And your killer," he stated as he opened his mouth and let the four Anbu see fire brewing in his throat. Suddenly he closed his mouth and turned around. "Ah!" Kakashi shouted as Haraka caught his wrist in which hand he was holding a kunai since his ninjato lied broken somewhere. Kakashi took out a second kuani in his right hand and tried to slash at Haraka's throat, but the larger man caught his wrist again. Kakashi pumped chakra into his feet and jumped up, his feet sailing towards Yakara's chin. The red-eyed man let go of Kakashi at the last second and jumped back to avoid getting his jaw being broken. The silver-haired Anbu landed in a crouch and made 4 quick hand seals. "Raiden." Electroducing wave. He shouted and made a horizontal slash with his right hand. Blue arc of lighting flew at the bone man, who jumped into the air to avoid getting electrocuted, but this was only a diversion. Suiton. Water bullet barrage jutsu. The Hellfire user heard 3 voices call out in unison. He looked over his shoulder and saw Naruto, Tenzo, and Kat shotting large amounts of the small, sharp orb of water at him. Araka pivoted himself in the air to face those 3 Anbu and send a punch towards them. Jigakuhi Shinku. Eternal flame ball, orange fire shot from his fist towards the Anbu, destroying every water bullet on its way. The 3 Anbu ceased their jutsu and jumped away as the ball was about to hit them. As soon as they landed away from the danger, they saw Shisui engage Haraka in a taijutsu battle. Shisui slashed at the red-eyed man with the kunai in his right hand, but Haraka stepped back and avoided the attack. Shisui turned around and sent a spinning kick at the man's head, but he was able to catch Shisui's feet and threw him to the side. As soon as Shisui was out of the way, he disappeared and the 3 Anbu had to scatter as Haraka appeared next to their last position. He kicked the ground, creating a large crater and looked around. Seeing no one, he decided to attack the nearest Anbu. Haraka sent a punch at Yamato and shouted. Jigakuhi Shinku. Eternal flame ball, the Anbu saw the orb of fire coming at him and made several hand seals. Oten. Mud wall jutsu. He stomped the ground hard with his left foot and a thick wall rose in front of him. He braced himself for the explosion, but he didn't expect his wall to explode so easily. The explosion sent Yamato flying away until he was stopped by a large pillar made of stone. Araka, who was walking toward the brown-haired Anbu, was also sent flying when Kat delivered a jumping spinning kick to his temple. The Takurin jumped back to his feet just in time to avoid getting his head cut off by Kakashi's Chidori. The silver-haired Anbu tried to slash at Haraka with his jutsu, but the large man avoided every thrust and swipe that the Anbu did. Kakashi made a forward thrust and Haraka sidestepped it, but Dog was suddenly enveloped in smoke and Crow jumped out of it with a kick to the man's temple. Araka caught Shisui's right feet and the Uchiha placed his right hand on the bigger man's forearm. Suddenly Shisui's left feet shot out in an axe kick as he pivoted his body in the air. Unfortunately, Haraka was able to catch the second kick as well. Unbeknown to the Takurin, the black-haired ninja smirked under his mask as he knew that he played his part in the plan perfectly. Jerikin's sense of danger suddenly started to scream at him and the bone man looked over his shoulder and saw Naruto running toward him with his jutsu aimed at Jerikin's heart. The Takurin let go of the Uchiha and pushed him back and in the last second, he pivoted his torso to the right. Suzaku. Naruto's hand cut straight the Takurin's shoulder making the man roar out in pain as his blood splattered on the white snow. Before Naruto could move, Haraka moved forward, letting Naruto's hand free, but before the blonde could retreat, the Takurin caught him by his forearm. With deadly precision, the Jigakuhi user took one of his blades and impaled Naruto in the right shoulder, making the boy cry out in agony, but he was silenced when the large man delivered a brutal uppercut punch to the blonde's gut with such force that Naruto coughed up blood and lost the air from his lungs. The red-eyed man watched in small satisfaction as blood streamed from under Naruto's mask. He then let go of the blonde's forearm and hit the Anbu in his face with such force that Naruto was sent flying 10 meters away and the right eye and right side of the forehead of the mask were destroyed. The blonde rolled through the ground until he stopped about 15 meters away from the fight. He watched as Yugo's right elbow was broken in half while blood flowed from a wound above his right eye, made by a sharp part of the destroyed mask. Kakashi threw 5 shuriken which made a circle around Haraka and tied him with ninja wire, but the Takurin shrugged it off and destroyed the bindings. He disappeared and punched Dog using his good hand with a hook, which stunned the Anbu enough for the following attack. The red-eyed man delivered a back kick to Kakashi's torso, which sent the Anbu skidding back until he was caught by Shisui. Haraka was about to rush at the two, but his 6 circles on his face suddenly pulsed. "I guess that it's enough time for now," he said and snapped his fingers using his good hand. Suddenly a rift opened behind him, the middle was pitch black, while the outline was deep blue with white spots. "Wait." Kakashi shouted out as he regained his breath. Seeing that his enemy stopped, Kakashi asked. "What do you want with the Land of Iron?" The silver-haired Anbu asked as the Takurin looked at him over his shoulder. "What I want doesn't matter, it's our leader's orders that matters. And it is not the only Land of Iron that he wants." He wants and will annihilate the whole elemental nations. He said proudly and raised his hand. Don't you think that it is a bit far-fetched? Shisui asked as he saw Haraka's eyes to narrow. No, this was only a scout party, our army counting in thousands. I am one of the 5 generals of the armies, and our leader is strong enough to defeat us all without any problem. There is nobody alive to stop him, and soon the elemental nations will burn as the blood of its inhabitants will paint this very ground. He shouted and turned around. Yana, ninjas, he said and stepped into the void which vanished with him. Oh, damn lord, how good it's over, Shisui muttered and fell to the ground and took deep breaths. Kakashi, who still stood wide-eyed at Haraka's claim, swallowed. No, it won't be over for a long time. Come, let's treat the others, Dog said, and Shisui slowly raised to his feet. Kakashi went trying to help Yugao with her elbow, while Shisui and Tenzo, who wasn't too injured, rushed to patch Naruto up. It took the group 15 minutes to heal Naruto and Yugao enough for them to be able to move on their own. The group was now walking toward the hill that they come from as the Hazeomi village still burned behind them, but now there was less fire and smoke visible. Squad Row came upon the hill and saw that Mikasa was sitting on a stump of a tree, alone. The blonde Anbu, who didn't have his mask on since it was destroyed, walked towards the young girl and crouched in front of her, so he was on her eye level. Mikasa-chan, we are back, do you know where my clone went? The blonde asked as the girl's hollow eyes moved towards him. He suddenly disappeared before we got to the hill. I decided to come here, she said quietly, her voice devoid of any emotion. Nika the blonde was cut by the girl, whose emotionless eyes looked at him. Naruto-san, where should I go from here? It's cold, there is no place for me to go anymore, she muttered quickly, but all of the Anbu heard her. Naruto untied his scarf, which to everyone's surprise wasn't scratched even in the tiniest bit, and tied it around the black-haired girl's neck. You can have this, it's warm after all, right, Naruto said with a smile. He then extended his hand and looked her into eyes, which were wide from surprise. You can come live with me, he said and motioned her to take his hand. Let's go home, our home, he said. Everyone watched as tears gathered in the young girl's eyes as she reached out for the hand, and when she caught it, Naruto squeezed it. Okay, let's go home, she said as tears flowed from her eyes. 4 days later, council chamber. While the Hokage was the supreme commander of the village, there were also times when he called the council to ask for their opinion. The council itself was formed by the clan heads, high-level and respected ninjas like the Anbu commander, Jonin commander, and top Anbu and Jonin of the village. The chamber was a square room, with the Hokage's desk being in front of the wall opposite of the door. On the Hokage's left was a long desk for the Jonin and Anbu. On the Hokage's right was also a long desk, but this was for the clan heads. In front of the Hokage was a clear space for anyone who isn't on the council to stand or sit, depending on who the person was. At this very moment, the council chamber was full. On Hiruzen's right was Nara Shikaku, followed by Akamichi Choza, Yamanaka Inoichi, Namikaze Naruto, Hyuga Hiashi, Senju Tsunade, Aburam Shibi, Inyazuka Tsume, Uchiha Fugaku, and Kurama Murakumo. On the Hokage's left was sitting Jiraiya, followed by the Anbu commander Shadow, Hada Kakashi, or Shiranui Genma, Uchiha Shisui, Marino Ibiki, Might Guy, Midokado Himura, Udatane Kaharu and Shimura Danzo. The council was talking about the discoveries made by Squad Row on their recent mission to Land of Iron. The Sandaime has asked the council about ideas what to do with the enemy lurking so close to their village and land, and there have been many ideas. Naruto-kun, tell me, what would you do? Hiruzen abruptly asked. Suddenly everyone was quiet as they all wanted to know what the young prodigy would say. The blonde was quiet for a moment until he looked at the Hokage, right into the old man's eyes. If I would have to make the call, I would do the same as Land of Iron has done. Evacuate every village in Land of Fire to Konoha until we have dealt with the threat of Takurans, Naruto said, causing a few mutters to go around the chamber. Shikaku, who had a scroll in front of him, turned to the Hokage. I must say that it would be impossible. There is no enough place and food for the whole Land of Fire to survive, even the half won't do, the Nara said as he looked to the Hokage, who nodded his head and turned to Naruto. The blonde stood up and walked over to the clear space in the chamber. That I know, but please, can someone tell me what a farmer does when has too many cows on his farm, but doesn't want to kill or sell any of them? The blonde asked and looked around the chamber. He makes more place for them by creating another layer of a fence around them, Danzo said as he and everyone looked at the blonde, waiting for him to continue. The blonde then looked at Shikaku, who had wide eyes. I see that you have already understood my plan, Shikaku-san, Naruto said, and walked to the middle of the chamber and made a single hand seal. Roots started to come out of the ground and made a table with a model of Konoha. I propose that we create another wall around Konoha in which all of the immigrants would live, Naruto said, and Kaharu stood up quickly. Are you crazy? This wall has protected us for years and you just want to create another one around it? She almost shouted in outrage. The blonde Anbu meanwhile looked at her with indifference. Yes, besides I am not the only one who thought it would be a good idea to create another layer of walls around Konoha, Naruto said, and took out a book from his pouch. My two-sen also thought that it would be a great idea, the boy said. Are there any reasons written in there? Shadow asked as he leaned back with his hands crossed. Yes, as my two-sen says, the only reason that those old walls hadn't been destroyed yet is because any enemy army wasn't able to come this deep into the Fire Country. In the first war, it was because no hidden village had known where Konoha lied. In the second war, the three Sannin defended our borders, enough to make an army unable to come towards Konoha. In the third war, I was able to destroy Iwa's army before it got too close to the wall. That what he has written here, Naruto said and placed the notebook in his pouch back. Let's say that we go with this plan, tell me where would the walls be, and how would you build them? Asked Hiashi as he watched the blonde's every move with his pearl-like eyes. The blonde walked to the model and made a circle around Konoha, which started by the Hokage monument and ended on the other side of it. As he did this, walls of roots started to create them in the touched area. He then divided the large R 3 parts. My two-sen has sketched this. We would build the large wall around Konoha and divide it into 3 parts. The one on the west would be called Carines, the one on the east would be Trost, and the one in the south would be Shiganshina. I have no idea where he took these names from, the blonde muttered the last part under his breath, but everyone in the chamber heard it, and most of the present people chuckled at this. Well, back to the map, Two-san proposed that we would build gates to each of the districts which would connect to Konoha, but only the Shiganshina would have a gate that would allow anyone out of the walls, Naruto said, and then made a circle on the Hokage mountain. He also had planned to create another wall here, the most protected place, since no one will be able to come from south, west or east. The only way to attack it would be to run up the large waterfall, which only a few people can currently do, the blonde said and looked at the council. But had not Shisui said that the Takurins can use chakra? Asked Guy, who was uncharacteristic serious. Naruto nodded once and leaned on the model. Yes, but he has also said that they use more chakra than necessary for those jutsus of theirs, which tells us that their chakra control is bad, and without almost perfect chakra control, they won't be able to run up the waterfall, the Anbu explained, and Guy nodded in understanding. I would place nobles and daimyo inside these walls, since they are most valuable of persons who are too weak to defend themselves. In the original Konoha, I would suggest that most ninjas are placed, and no outsiders are allowed inside without any good reason and permission of the Hokage. In the outer wall, I would suggest having the outsiders live while shinobi patrol and guard the walls, Naruto said, and nodded to the Hokage. Thank you for considering my decision, Hokage-sama, Naruto said and bowed to his leader, and took his between Hiashi and Inoichi again. Everyone awaited Hirazen's reaction while the man had asked himself the pros and cons of this arrangement. Tell me, Naruto-kun, what would happen with those walls after the crisis is over? The old man finally asked. From the intel given to us by Tsunade-san, Konoha is still producing the most children in the elemental nations. From this intel, if there will be no war or a disaster like the Kyuubi attack for the next 10 years, Konoha will have the same problem as here. Either way, one day we will have to gain more place for the next generations to live, and this is the perfect occasion to ensure that in years Konoha won't have a problem with overpopulation, Naruto said as he read the information given to the council by Tsunade. Well, then how do you propose to build those walls? Sandai asked and Naruto took out 2 different seals. Seals? Hiruzen asked, but Naruto shook his head. I propose that we have the outsiders come to Konoha as soon as possible, but I know that there is not enough time or space to create the walls before they will come here, Naruto said, and once again walked to the model which was still in the middle of the chamber. If you will give me time to tomorrow midnight, I will be able to create enough place for us to create the walls, Naruto said as he showed on the model the places which would need to be cleared. And how would you do this? Murakumo asked as he looked at Naruto with a raised eyebrow. What most don't understand is that Mokuton isn't the ability to create plants out of nothing. Mokuton gives the user the full control of all plants, whether it is a tree or a seed. It is also the reason why Mokuton is harder to use in Land of Iron and almost impossible to use in Land of Wind. So, I will simply make those 3 change into seeds and then move those seeds underground to a location that won't interfere with the wall, the blonde said. Then what are those seals? Choza asked as he looked at those 2 pieces of papers. Ah, yes. You see, no matter what we do, we will unable to finish those walls before the immigrants come to Konoha, so I designed a seal that will create a temporary wall in the place where the real one should be. This will guarantee that nothing will happen to the immigrants if Takurin should decide to attack them, Naruto said as he showed one of the seals to the others people in the chamber. Is there a way to have them going the whole time? Fugaku asked, but to everyone's disappointment, the blonde shook his head with an annoyed expression. No, the reason is that the seal takes chakra from the user and molded in the design thing. We have decided that if the idea with walls goes through, then I will supply chakra for the walls, because with my huge reserves and perfect chakra control, I will be able to withhold it the longest, Tsunade said, getting a few nods from the others. What is the second seal for? Inoichi asked as he looked at the seal in Naruto's hand with interest. Well, I have thought that if we will want to have this wall built as fast as possible, then we will need people who can use Doton chakra, so I and Jiraiya-sensei have made this seal that changes one's chakra into Doton chakra. With this many, more people will be able to work on the wall, which will speed the process up, the blonde said. How many of those seals will you able to supply us with? Shikaku asked and Naruto gave them all a proud smile. I and Jiraiya-sensei have made a ton of water clones that can make those seals. It also helps that this seal isn't too complicated, so it is easy to make. I say that by the time I have cleared out the area for the outer wall, I will have at least 1,000 of those seals ready, Naruto said, and smirked at the awestruck expressions of everyone besides Tsunade and Jiraiya. Well, it helps that we have already made almost 400 of them, he said, and rubbed back of his head with an embarrassed blush on his cheeks, while everyone in the room face faulted. There is still one thing that we haven't discussed, Hyugaku said as he looked at the model. Where will they live? At this everyone once again turned to Naruto for the answer. When I have cleared the way for you to build the wall, I will start with building houses together with Bor-senpai, while the rest of our forces will build the walls. Meanwhile, the outsiders can sleep in tents since the weather is nice, Naruto said, and got a nod of approval from Hiruzen. How long would it take for you to build these houses? Asked Genma as he chewed on his senbon. Alone, a few months. With Bor, between 3 and 5 months. With a group of builders who will build houses with us, top 2 months, Naruto said. The Sandaime then stood up and looked at the council. Is there anyone who is against this? He asked and only Kaharu raised her hand. Very well, we will start the construction of the walls in 2 days, when Naruto-kun will made room for us. Now, did Minato-kun name those walls? Hiruzen asked with a smirk, and everyone turned to the blonde who muttered under his breath. Of course this Baka did this, he muttered inside. He called the outer wall the Wall Maria, the inner wall Wall Rose and the upper wall the Wall Sina. What stupid names, couldn't he think of anything better? He asked rhetorically and a few of the councilmen and women chuckled. Very well then, this meeting is adjourned. We will meet tomorrow while Naruto-kun creates us enough place for the wall to be built, Hiruzen said, and people started to walk out of the chamber. Outside the chamber, as soon as Naruto exited the chamber, Shisui and Kakashi caught up to him. Oh man, it seems that you have so much work to do, and I hope that we could spar today or go to train, Shisui said as he leaned on the blonde's shoulder and gave him a grin. Nah, it is like 3 hours of work, Naruto said, making Shisui stumble in his walk as he looked at the blonde with wide eyes. What do you mean it is only 3 hours of work? Shisui shouted as he watched as Kakashi read his book while walking next to Naruto. The blonde looked over his shoulder and gave the Uchiha a smirk filled with amusement. As I said, it is only about 3 hours, but I have a mission with Kakashi Nai tonight, Naruto said with a grimace, letting Shisui know what type of mission it is. Guard duty tonight was what Naruto meant. But I will have a wood clone clean the area, Naruto said as his smirk came back. You can do this? The Uchiha asked as he caught up to the 2 other Anbu. The blonde nodded and opened the door of the Hokage mansion. Yup, from the small experiments I have made, I know that wood clones can easily use Mokuton than any other type of the clone, even shadow clones, the blonde said as he sighed and stretched his back. How is Mikasa doing? Kakashi asked as looked at the blonde from the corner of his eye. Naruto sighed and put his hand in his black Anbu pants. Well, Inoichi-sen says that she is doing like every veteran shinobi after seeing their family killed, Naruto answered. Kakashi and Shisui looked at each other and then back to Naruto. She is trying to bury her emotions under a mask of indifference, Kakashi said matter-of-factly, and Naruto nodded. Yeah, she does. Inoichi-sen is trying to help her with it, but he says that if he is unable to do it on their next meeting, then there is nothing he can do to help her. He said that she will need time to sort those things herself, the blonde Anbu said. The trio started to walk upwards on the stairs leading towards the Hokage monument. So, what was that I was hearing from Kakashi about you and Mikasa sleeping together? Shisui asked and grinned when he saw Naruto turn his head to the side to hide his blush. Shut up, idiot. It is not my fault that she is too afraid to go to sleep alone, and I have to sleep with her, otherwise, she would drop dead from lack of sleep, the blonde said, and then turned to the silver-haired ninja. And what about the promise that you won't tell anyone about it, you pervert? Naruto shouted and pointed at Kakashi, who gave the younger boy an eye smile. I have promised nothing, he said, and then lightly hit the blonde on top of his head. And don't call me a pervert again. Because I like to read a great novel which contains some sexual themes doesn't mean that I am a pervert, he added and started giggling as he read his orange book. Are you kidding? Some sexual themes? This whole book is smut. Naruto shouted and his right eyebrow twitched when he saw Kakashi wave him off. I will show you, you pervert. Once I finished my book you are gonna beg me to sign every copy you are gonna buy. The blonde told himself in his mind. Hokage office. Hiruzen was looking at his Anbu commander, who was sitting in front of him in his office. As soon as the two entered the office, Shadow has sent all the Anbu out and used a silencing seal to make sure that no one overheard what they were about to discuss. Hiruzen leaned back in his seat and lit his pipe. Well, I think that an Anbu commander has a lot of work to do. What can I do for you? The old man asked and looked at the special mask made for the commander. Unlike every other Anbu who had mask resembling some sort of animal or mythical creature, Shadow's mask was completely black. Add to it the pitch black Anbu cloak and the fact that Shadow had it the whole time on, he looked like a shadow. We both know that we are at a large disadvantage in this war. You know this, I know this, Minato knew this. This is also the reason he let all those notes for Naruto to find so easily. The voice was distorted by a special seal in the mask, designed by Minato himself. Hiruzen puffed the smoke out and nodded with a grimace. That I know. What I need and want to know is what are you gonna do this? I am sure that you and Minato-kun had at least one backup plan if they would be able to come here again, Saratobi said and closed his eyes with a sigh. I am too old for this shit, I think the time where I choose my successor is nearing fast, he said and opened his eyes. Well then, what is the plan that you two came up with? Hiruzen asked as he took another drag from his pipe. Shadow stood up and walked up to the large window behind the Sandaime Hokage. Minato knew that if they come back we will have to evacuate the whole End of Fire to Konoha, otherwise everyone who is outside this walls will be killed. With this in mind, he decided that if we will have so many more persons living in Konoha, there will be many talented children who we will train and create another squad of Anbu. A special force, you might say, Shadow said and then looked back at Hiruzen. But it will take years to train them to the level that they can fight Takurans. Hiruzen stated, but his Anbu commander shook his head and sighed. Normally. You would be right, but we are talking about Minato here, Shadow said and chuckled. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow at the black-masked Anbu and breathed out another cloud of smoke. So? What did Minato-kun do this time? The professor asked and Shadow shook his head. He created, as he dubbed it, the Great Time-Dimensional Training Machine Room Seal, the cloaked Anbu said, causing Hiruzen to laugh at the name. It was well known that the Yondaime Hokage was as bad at naming techniques as Jiraiya was with ladies. So what does the Great Time-Dimensional Training Machine Room Seal does? Hiruzen asked as he wrote this name in a small notepad. At this, Shadow stopped chuckling and looked even more serious than before. Basically what this idiot made allows maximally 21 people to train faster. The time that flows in the room is slower than outside. 1 year outside or 3 years inside, Shadow said and leaned against the window. Hiruzen looked at him for a moment and then slowly blinked. Huh? He asked and looked at the commander who sighed. There are two problems with it. First, it took Minato, me and Jiraiya years to write this seal, and we all are seal masters. The second is that once the seal is activated, it will work for 2 years without stopping, and on the last day it will destroy itself. We don't know why it simply does, Shadow said and walked back to his seat. I see, Hiruzen said and sighed while rubbing his temples. So? What is the next phase of your plan? The Sandaime asked and took a drag from his pipe. We wait. When every village is evacuated to Konoha, I will look for candidates that will be able to go through the training regimen and take them in. In 2 weeks, we will begin their 2 years training, the commander said simply and watched Hiruzen for a reaction. Are you sure that simply 21 men and women will be enough to create this elite force? Hiruzen asked and the Anbu shook his head. No men or women, I will choose 20 children who are the most promising, and the one spot will be for tutors that will teach them. Besides, I think that I might have already 3 persons that will be a good choice for the squad, the Anbu said, and turned to leave. Wait, why do you want to take children? Hiruzen asked and the Anbu answered, not turning around. It is easier to mold children who are at level 0 than a shinobi who already has some habits. With this, Shadow left the Hokage to his thoughts. I am too old for this shit, he muttered and leaned back in his seat. 3 weeks later, Konoha Academy. Shadow was standing in front of 20 children who will be molded into soldiers. Most of them probably won't come back from the war with Takaras, and those who will come back will either be heroes or only shells of what they were before. But that is fine. That was a price that Shadow was willing to pay if it meant that Konoha would be safe. The Anbu commander watched at the faces of the kids in front of him. Some were nervous, some were confident, and some were simply prepared for what was awaiting them. Shadow cleared his throat and took out a small notepad. As you all know, for the next 2 years you all will be spending time in a specially designed seal. You all will be pushed to your limits and beyond them to make you all as strong as possible in the next 2 years. Some of you will come out as a new person, stronger, wiser and alive. The others will come out as losers, weak and still as useless kids as they were before, Shadow said, and almost everyone in the group swallowed. Well, let's not waste time. I will now read your tutors that will make sure that you will come out stronger. Die trying, Shadow said and started reading out. Ninjutsu. Hada Kakashi. Hijutsu. Might Guy. Genjutsu. Uchiha Itachi. Shuriken Jutsu. Namikaze Naruto. Ninjutsu. Uchiha Shisui. Physical conditioning. Tenzo. Now, I will read out your names so you don't waste time asking for such details there. Inyuzuka Hana. Uchiha Itachi. Uchiha Shisui. Namikaze Naruto. Sora. Imi no Iruka. Ackerman Mikasa. Jijuriren. Arlord Armin. Braun Reiner. Hoover Bertold. Leonhard Annie. Kirstine Jean. Bot Marco. Springer Connie. Lau Sasha. Lenz Krista. Beamer. Mina Carolina. And finally Wagner Thomas. If any of you wish to leave, this is the last chance. Once you enter the room, there is no going back, Shadow warned, and before anyone could say anything, he nodded and urged them to enter a white room. Let's see how many of you will be able to survive this, but if there is one thing that I am sure of, it is that anyone who will come out of there will be strong, stronger than what they normally could become, Shadow said to himself, and nodded to himself. They are the next generation that will keep Konoha safe from them, he muttered under his breath. 2 years later, again they all were here, standing like they did exactly 2 years ago. In front of them, Shadow was appraising them all and was a bit surprised that all 20 of them has passed and survived the training. As he watched their faces, he saw that all of them have changed, well all but 3. Naruto, Shisui and Itachi were still their normal selves, but that was because the 3 of them have already seen the reality of this world. It was a common thing for a ninja to change after their first real battle, because it doesn't matter if you are a genin or a jonin. After you see and participate in your first battle where you have to kill people and comrades die around you, you always change. Well, they would see soon enough. For now, it was time to congratulate and tell them about their incoming work. Shadow cleared his throat and all 20 of them went silent in a moment. I won't waste time telling you how proud I am that all of you have survived or something like that. I will now read out your name, codename, give you your mask, and then tell which position you got out of the 20 of you, but only the top 5, the Anbu commander said, and Armin raised his hand. What do you mean by position, sir? Armin asked in Shadow's side. Maybe you knew or not, you were all getting marks during your training. I will now read your codename, so listen up. The commander said and all of the new recruited Anbu straightened their backs. Uchiha Shisui, codename Crow, first. Namikaze Naruto, codename Dragon, second. Uchiha Itachi, codename Weasel, third. Ackerman Mikasa, codename Tiger, fourth. Braun Reiner, codename Rhino, fifth, Shadow said, and gave the last 3 their masks since Naruto and Shisui already theirs. Alright, the order that I will read now doesn't mean you standing. Inyuzuka Hana. Wolverine, Sora. Monkey, Jijuriren. Lion, Hoover Bertold. Moose, Yumino Iruka. Dolphin, Leonhard Annie. Wolf, Kirstine Jean. Fish, Bot Marco. Hamster, Springer Connie. Ant, Blau Sasha. Panda, Lenz Krista. Fox, Arlord Armin. Pigeon, Emer. Shark, Carolina Mina. Octopus and finally Wagner Thomas. Hippo. Shadow said and watched as all of the Anbu recruits held their masks. But this done, there is only one thing left to do. We need to choose a captain of this squad. Also, because it is the biggest Anbu squad in history, I think that we might choose 3 vice captains, just in case, Shadow said, and sat on the teacher desk. He watched as the 20 Anbu waited for something until Iruka raised his hand. I nominate Shisui for the position of captain. He is not only the strongest of us, but also has the most experience, the scarred ninja said, and Shadow to the named Uchiha. Crow, do you accept? Shadow asked and Shisui knelt and nodded. Yes, I accept, the Anbu commander nodded, and then his eyes turned back to the recruits. Then as the captain of the new formed squad Omega, choose 2 vice captains, who will be second in command, should you be unable to do your job, Shadow said, and the Uchiha nodded. He turned around watched the 20 Anbu, even though he already knew who he wanted to choose. I choose Namikaze Naruto and Uchiha Itachi as my Fuku Taicho, the newly named captain said, and the commander turned to the 2 Anbu who was already kneeling. So I take that you both accept? He asked and the 2 nodded. Hi. They answered and stood up. Shadow then turned to Shisui and gave him a folder with many papers. Inside here you will find everything you need to know. I advise that you show your squad your new training ground, locker room and your lounge. Inside this folder, you will also find about everything that happened in those 2 last years. Good luck, Crow Taicho, Shadow said and saluted to the young Anbu, who saluted back. Alright, everyone, meet me at the Hokage Monument, Shisui said vanishing in a puff of smoke, followed by the rest of his squad. 20 minutes later, Squad Omega Lounge. The 20 soldiers were seated in their private lounge, which next to their locker room. The lounges in Anbu were mostly used to simply spend time and relax, but sometimes they were used as meeting for squads to discuss Anbu-related things. As you all know, the battlefield is very different than any training simulation we could do. So, to avoid misunderstandings during the fights, we will divide this squad into 3 teams, Shisui said, and started to write on a blackboard that was in the room. Team 1 or Crow Buntai will consist of me, Annie, Sasha, Hana, Armin, and Mina, Shisui said and wrote the names, and before he could continue, he was interrupted by Naruto, who was pointing an accusing finger at him. Oh, how is that fair that your team consists only of chicks? Naruto asked and Shisui gave him a deadpan expression. Mikasa, who was sitting next to Naruto, nudged him in the ribs and he looked at her. What? He asked. Naruto Fuku Taicho, how many times do I have to tell you that I am not a girl? Armin said and the other blonde looked at him with a lost expression. Naruto blinked once. I forgot, he said with an embarrassed blush while he rubbed back of his head. And how many times did I told you not to call me a chick? Hana asked with narrowed eyes. Naruto chuckled nervously, but before they could continue their usual banter, Shisui coughed into his fist, getting everyone's attention back. As I was saying, Team 2 or Dragon Buntai will consist of Naruto, Mikasa, Connie, Marco, Jean, Iruka, and Sasha. The last team is Team 3 or Weasel Buntai and consists of Itachi, Reiner, Irin, Thomas, Sora, Berthold and Emer, the newly appointed captain said, and after writing these names, he sat down on a large sofa next to Jean. Taicho, didn't Commander give you reports about what was happening for the last 2 years? Reiner asked and Shisui nodded. Yes, he did and from what I saw, it doesn't look too bad, Shisui answered and then turned to the blonde. And I said that you don't have to be so strict when talking with me, Shisui is enough, after all, we are friends. What does it say, Shisui? Itachi asked as he leaned forward, wanting to know what is the situation in Konoha. If the reports are right, then Takarans have started to build small bases around the elemental nations. When this information got to the Hokage, he made a few changes about how Konoha's ninjas work. The regular forces do normally missions in and out of the village, while Anbu squads are dispatched to patrol the forest around Konoha, Shisui said, and then looked at his comrades. Anbu's second objective is destroying those bases and killing all Takarans met in Land of Fire. Knowing this, I assume that it is only a matter of time before our squad will be sent out of the village to fight with Takarans, the oldest member of the squad said, and most of the others swallowed. Now that we are talking about ages, not including Shisui, Hana, Iruka, and Itachi, everyone in this squad is 9 years old. Even though they spent 6 years old in the room, their bodies only grew 2 years older. So most of the squad Omega is a 14-year-old and a body of 9-year-old. Shisui's and Iruka's bodies were 14 years old, while Itachi's is 11 years old. So, what do we do now? Connie asked and everyone turned their attention to Shisui who hummed and shrugged. No, we might as well spend the weekend resting. Go visit your family or friends. We will meet here on Monday at noon, the Uchiha said and stood up. Yep, being a captain is surely very hard, you earned yourself an extra large serving of dango, Shisui-sama the Uchiha told himself in his thoughts. As every of the Anbu was leaving their lounge, Naruto and Mikasa were walking toward their home. Mikasa-chan, wanna get some ramen before we go home? The blonde asked as the ramen stand came into view. She nodded and they changed their course towards the ramen stand. 3 days later, Tuesday, Squad Omega training ground. Once the squad came back from their minor holidays, they spent the whole Monday in their teams creating and training various maneuvers, which they could use against Takarans. They just finished their hand-to-hand combat training, which was cute after physical conditioning that they all did together. Now they all were sitting in the lounge and eating a lunch that Naruto had his clones bring. As the group was happily chatting and eating, suddenly they all felt a slight pinching on their shoulder that held their tattoos. The room was silent in an instant because all of them were taught that the pinching on tattoo was a sight that the Anbu commander has a message for every Anbu. Every Anbu in the near of Konoha prepare for battle, code red, Konoha is being invaded by Takarans. Every Anbu captain in the near of Konoha report to my office for instruction this instant. The voice of their commander told them in their minds, thanks to the tattoo. Before anyone could ask, Shisui disappeared, leaving the rest of his squad without further instructions. Before the newly recruited Anbu could start to panic, they all heard a voice that everyone in this room came to hear at least once in their training trip. Boy, calm down, they all turned to look at Naruto who was looking at them, his arms folded in front of him. This was the side of Naruto that came out in battles or when he was acting as the clan head of the Namikaze clan and while he was their instructor. It was a part of him that was always calm, was able to form plans in seconds, never hesitated, and they all came to respect this part of Naruto. When they heard him say those words, all of their panics vanished, as they knew that Naruto always knew what to do when something goes wrong. You all heard Commander, Konoha is invaded, and Taicho is currently getting to know the finer details. There are 2 choices we have. 1, we panic and achieve nothing or we start to prepare for our first official mission. Now, what will you all choose? The blonde stated, and everyone knew that the last question didn't need to be answered. They all were being trained for this for 6 years. They were ready to give their all for Konoha and their families. They all steeled their resolves and everyone walked to the locker room, leaving only Naruto and Itachi in the room. The blonde looked at his friend of the corner of his eye. You froze, Naruto stated matter-of-factly. The Uchiha's eyes widened when he heard this statement and soon he clenched his eyes shut and balled his hands in a fist. Sorry, Itachi tried to explain, but Naruto placed a hand on the Uchiha's shoulder. The blonde sighed and Itachi opened his eyes. I know, you are afraid that something will happen to Sasuke or the rest of your family. There is no shame to be frozen when it happens for the first time, the blonde said, but the Uchiha still shook his head, disappointment at himself visible in Itachi's eyes. Still, I am now a Fuku Taicho, I shouldn't have frozen, besides I am older than you and you still were able to take care of the situation without losing your cool, the Sharingan user said, and Naruto sighed. The blonde then hit Itachi over the head and grinned at the Uchiha. Stop you whining or Krista might hear you, the blonde said, and the older boy started to blush while trying to explain that he didn't know what Naruto meant. Besides your team will need you and you can't die yet. You have yet to achieve your dream, remember our promise? The blonde asked. Itachi's eyes widened when he remembered a particular night during their training program. The group of 21 was camping at a hill that overlooked a lake tonight. It was one of the better abilities of the seal they used, it could alter where they were. One moment they could be in the deserts of Suna and the other they could be climbing a hill in Land of Iron. The training group was having a day off today, so they decided to go to sleep earlier to conserve some strength for tomorrow's Taijutsu training with Guy. Itachi was sitting on a bench made by Naruto next to a campfire, which was a few meters away from the house also created by Naruto. The said blonde was sitting across the campfire with a sleeping Mikasa's head on his shoulder. The two were alone since the rest of the trainees were sleeping soundly in the wooden house. The reason why Itachi wasn't sleeping was that he wanted to think alone, but it appeared that Naruto had the same idea, cause the Uchiha could see that Naruto wasn't particularly focusing on the outside world. Without any noise, Itachi took out a single shuriken and flung it at Naruto with deadly precision. A second before the throwing star hit Naruto, the blonde caught it with his index and middle finger. Nah, Itachi, now that I think about it, even though we have been on the same team for some time, I never asked about your dream, Naruto said as his eyes focused on the older Uchiha. Naruto threw the weapon back to Itachi, put it back in his pouch and sighed. My dream, huh? The young Uchiha muttered under his breath, I think that it would be protecting the village and my family, Itachi answered and leaned back. Naruto raised an eyebrow and hummed. This is a bit vague. No bigger goal that will be connected with it? Naruto asked as his eyes turned to the fire, which illuminated the dark area since it was pretty late. A bigger goal? The Uchiha questioned quietly as he watched the fire dance in the dark. The blonde who was sitting across him nodded and smiled slightly. Yeah, something bigger. How do you want to protect them? Staying in Anbu? That won't do it, the blonde muttered and watched out of the eye of his eyes as Itachi's eyes widened slightly. How come? The Uchiha asked and the blonde looked at the Uchiha. If you join the Anbu then you are promising to do anything to protect your village. If it would come to this, what would you choose, your family or the village? Because as an Anbu you won't have a choice, Naruto said and looked back at the fire. What would you choose if you had the choice? Itachi asked and shifted his gaze to the duo in front of him. Naruto smiled sadly and looked at Mikasa. Unlike you, when the time to decide comes, the people close to me will be strong enough to protect themselves, be it by their strength or political power. So my choice would be the village because I won't have to worry that the decisions I make will affect those close to me, Naruto said and looked at Itachi. The people close to you, on the other hand, will need someone to protect them. In the end, it is all about the choices we make. What I say might be completely wrong because of the choices I will make in the future, but if there is one thing that I am sure about, it's that is the best choice to plan and prepare for the worst, Naruto said and sighed. Itachi looked at his comrade with wide eyes until he nodded and made sure to remember this for the future. So, what would you propose for me to do to protect my family and village? Itachi asked and the blonde hummed for a few moments. Become the Hokage, Naruto said abruptly, his voice filled with conviction. Itachi's head snapped upward as he looked at Naruto as if he was crazy. What? If you become the Hokage, you will be the one in the lead, meaning you will the one who gets to choose. And if your choices are right, then you will be able to protect your family and village, Naruto said and shrugged. But again, it is your choice, the blonde added. But wasn't your dream to surpass your father? Itachi asked and Naruto nodded. Then why do you propose that I should become the Hokage? I will be a threat to your dreams, Itachi said, and Naruto shrugged once more. I have never said in what aspect I want to surpass my dad. It might be as a leader, as a fighter. I might be simply richer or more known than him. I haven't decided yet. I was never able to imagine myself in the Hokage robes, Naruto said. The two spent some time in silence as Itachi reflected on everything that he heard and learned today. Suddenly Itachi's eyes steeled and he looked at the blonde who was looking at him with a raised eyebrow. I have made my choice, Itachi said and stood up. I will become the first Uchiha to get the title of Hokage, it's my choice, Itachi said and placed his right fist over his heart. And promise to you, Naruto chuckled slightly and then sighed. Well then, as a friend I promise to help you accomplish your dream and then become your guard, it's my choice. Idachi's eyes focused on Naruto's grinning face, and the Uchiha nodded. A smirk crept on the Sharingan user's face, and the two fists bumped. You better don't die as well, I will need someone on my level to protect me, Itachi said. They nodded to the other and went to the locker room to prepare for their first official mission as the Squad Omega. 5 minutes later every member of Squad Omega was sitting in the lounge in their Anbu gear, there were only 2 exceptions. The first was Mikasa who still had a red scarf tied around her neck, and the second was Naruto, who instead only one ninjato, had a second one, placed next to the first one. They all had their mask either in their hand or lying next to them on the sofas. Suddenly a burst of smoke signaled that Shisui came back from the captain meeting and everyone was dying to know what was happening. The Uchiha took off his crow mask and walked over to the blackboard. List up, everyone. We don't have too much time, he said and started to scribble on the blackboard. From the information gained by our scouts, a large army of about 500 Takarans is currently on their way towards Konoha's South District, Shiganshina, Shisui said. Armin, Irin, Krista, and Thomas gasped when they heard that the district was about to be attacked. Emer was also from Shiganshina, but since she was an orphan, she didn't have anyone to worry about. Well, Krista might have been an orphan as well, but she did care about all the people in the district. Reiner, Annie, Berthold, Connie and Sora were from Trost district, while Jean, Sasha, Marco, and Mina were from Karane's district. The only ones coming from Konoha were Naruto, Shisui, Itachi, Iruka, Hana, and Mikasa, since she lived with Naruto. There is only one objective in this mission. Kill as many Takarans as possible. Remember, use teamwork and don't get separated from your team, Shisui said and made a quick sketch of Konoha. Team 1 will be supporting our forces at the right part side of the wall, while Team 2 will help to protect the gate. Team 3 will be sent on the left side of the wall to eliminate every Takaran coming from the side, Shisui said and turned back to his squad. Are there any questions? Shisui asked and Sasha raised her hand. How many ninjas will Konoha deploy to protect the gate? Sasha asked and Shisui sighed. Everyone turned to the captain who looked them in their eyes. I won't lie to you. Konoha will send only 500 ninjas, Anbu squads included. The reason for it is because it is the first time that Takarans will fight as a larger unit and it is a perfect chance for us to observe how they fight, Shisui stated. Irin stood up and glared at his captain. So you will use us and citizen of Shiganshina district as cannon fodder so you can learn how to fight against Takarans, Irin shouted and everyone was silent for a moment until Shisui sighed. You have to understand that I didn't decide this. It was Commander's proposition and I am just following orders, the Uchiha said, and they all turned around when they heard a voice whisper something. What was that, Jean? Connie asked as everyone waited for the teenager's answer. He looked at them all with wide eyes that showed just how scared he is. Jean shouted and pointed at Shisui. Then why should we fight if we know that we will still die? No matter how skilled we might be, we will be overwhelmed since Takarans are stronger than regular ninjas. Jean shouted and everyone was silent as they tried to find an answer. Vacuous otherwise this fear that holds your heart now will also hold hearts of those close to you. Everyone turned and looked at Naruto, who had his eyes closed and arms folded in front of his chest. What? Jean asked quietly. The blonde opened his eyes and stood up, placing his mask on. If you choose not to fight, then Takarans will destroy every single district, killing everyone in their path, including your families. Tell me, do you want them to feel what you feel now? Naruto asked and started to walk towards the door. Would you run away as spineless cowards and let the Takarans kill your friends and families? Or will you fight and do it easier for the next ninjas of Konoha to defend our home, families, and friends? Naruto caught the knob of the door and looked over his shoulder. Jean, it is your choice and whether you choose to fight or not, you will have to carry the consequences till the end of your days, so I advise you to choose wisely, Naruto said and left the room. The room was silent for a second before Mikasa stood up and rushed to catch up to Naruto. Marco stood up next and looked at the others assigned in his team. I am not sure if my choice is right, but I would rather die fighting than die and be remembered as a spineless coward, Marco said and followed Mikasa. Shisui and Itachi stood up and looked at the others. As Naruto said, it is your choice, but remember that the consequences will eventually catch up to you, Itachi said and looked at his team. Irin looked pumped up, Reiner looked convinced, Berthold was ready to follow Reiner's steps. Sora nodded to Itachi, showing that he wasn't afraid, while Lemur looked more annoyed than afraid. The only one who didn't look perfectly sure was Thomas. Let's go, we have a mission to do, the young Uchiha said, and his team followed him outside. Shisui looked at his team and nodded to them with a smile. And Team 1 left with only Armin and Mina looking nervous. Ani, Jean, Iruka, and Sasha were left alone in the lounge. Nah, guys, what do we do? Connie asked and looked at his comrades. Sasha gritted her teeth and squeezed her eyes shut. She suddenly stood up and started to leave the room. Damn it. That stupid idiot and his stupid speeches about choices. Sasha shouted as she left the room, the same directions that Naruto, Mikasa, and Marco did. Iruka looked at Connie and Hei, both nodded to each other with grim but determined expressions. They turned to Jean and saw that he was staring at his hands with an unreadable expression. "Come on, Iruka, otherwise they will leave without us," Connie said, and they started to leave the room. Before they left, Connie stopped and looked at the only one left in the room. "Jean, when we started our training program, I was always thinking about you as a person in which I could always trust, but it turned out that you were simply a spineless coward," Connie said, and the two left the room. Once Jean was alone in the room, he clenched his fists and closed his eyes as tight as H could. Why? Why am I so afraid? No one else was as afraid as I. Am I the only spineless coward in our squad? Damn it. Hokage Monument. Mikasa, Naruto, and Marco were standing on the Yondame's head and watching as the people of Konoha spent their day normally, not even knowing how close the enemy is and what dangers awaits them over the walls. In Naruto's opinion, it was sad that those people were so ignorant. After all, ignorance killed the shinobi, as the old saying says. Naruto turned his head slightly to the left and watched as Iruka and Connie came running towards them. Naruto raised an eyebrow and looked at those two. "You sure took your sweet time," Naruto said with a slight smirk and leaned against one of the large spikes that represented his father's hair. "Sorry, Fuku Taicho, but I had to say something to Jean," Connie said, and Naruto nodded. "Let's go then, better we don't waste time," Naruto said, and as he was about to shunshin away, Sasha caught his shoulder. "What is it?" he asked. "Someone is coming from the HQ," she said, and soon they saw Jean sprinting towards them, at his full speed. He waved his hand to them, a gesture that asked them to wait. "So, you came, Jean," Naruto stated and looked at his subordinate with a small triumphal smirk. Jean huffed for a second before hitting Naruto in the shoulder. "Shut up, idiot, I came only because I don't want to be the only spineless coward in our squad, besides, if Connie was able to come, then I should have no problems," Jean said, and the said blonde nodded. "Yeah," the ant mask Anbu said before he turned to Jean. "Hey, what do you mean?" Horseface Connie shouted, but before they could continue, they turned to Naruto who coughed in his hand to gain their attention. "I think it is time to go," Naruto said, and the rest of the team nodded. With this, they all vanished in puffs of smoke. Naruto and his team stood on Wall Maria, right above the gate, and looked at the large clearing in front of them. Ever since the villager across from Land of Fire came to Konoha, the forest around the hidden village has been receding, and thus a large area devoid of any trees were created around Konoha. But this was fine for them, thanks to this, they would be able to see their enemies before they could get too close to the gates of Shiganshina district. The blonde looked over the other people who were standing above the gate. Most of them were around the age of 16 and were chunin. The blonde could see some genin who were sent out here, and Naruto knew that most of the genin wouldn't survive this battle. Normally, the higher-ups wouldn't send genin fresh out of the academy to defend the gates of Konoha, but this was different. Most of the genin here coming from the Shiganshina district and wanted to defend their families. Of course, the people who came from outside Konoha were allowed into ninja and civilians academies, but they couldn't live inside wall rows until they reached the rank of chunin, and only when they became jonin could their family also come to the inner wall. The rest of the genin who didn't come from Shiganshina were simply stationed here before to deliver supplies and patrol the streets. As Naruto looked around more, he saw a group of jonin preparing themselves for the battle. While Naruto couldn't see the Anbu sent here to protect the wall, he could sense them in the trees. The only reason why he could sense them was thanks to the tattoo they all had. The dragon mask Anbu knew that most of the Anbu's objective was to take out as many Takarins in a surprise attack as possible. They also have set many traps that would hopefully deal with damage to the enemy's numbers. The blonde looked over his shoulder and looked at all those ninjas who were standing on rooftops and waiting for the signal to attack. Of course, no all of the forces were stationed on the wall, some were still in the village, while a small unit of Anbu was making a big circle around the army and would launch a surprise attack from behind. The blonde's gaze then shifted to all the civilians who were standing on the streets with their families. Every family had gotten a sealing scroll which they used to seal all their most needed and costly belongings. All were ready to evacuate should Takarins be able to get through the defenses of Konoha. The civilians would go to the inner wall from where they would be divided into two groups. One would go to Trost while the second would go to the Carrains. The Anbus head snapped towards the place which would soon become a battlefield as he heard the explosions, which were the first line of traps. He took a glance at his team to see their reactions. Mikasa who was standing right next to him on his right awaited for the battle to begin calmly. He could see that her body wasn't tensed or cold, feel that her breathing became faster. Even though she looked and acted calm, the blonde knew that she was very nervous inside, even slightly afraid. Afraid that someone she became close with will die in this battle. Connie and Sasha were trembling and sweating slightly. They both were extremely nervous and afraid. But who could blame them, they were about to enter and fight the first time for their lives against an opponent who wouldn't think twice about killing them. Both Jean and Marco were taking deep calming breaths. Jean had already unsheathed his ninjato, and the blade was shaking in his hands as the boy tried to calm himself down. Marco had a better time, as he only was nervous but didn't shake or sweat like the others. He was simply afraid that he would do something wrong, he wasn't afraid of dying. Naruto looked at Iruka and saw the dolphin mask Anbu didn't shake or sweat, his breathing was normal, and he didn't show that he was nervous. He didn't show any emotions. If Naruto would have guessed, it was because he was so afraid that his body shut down. The blonde sighed as he knew that he had to help them or they would die the moment they stepped on the battlefield. Naruto took a deep breath and sighed once more. "Calm down," he said to his team, and suddenly they all calmed slightly. The blonde looked at everyone from his team as they turned to look at him, even Iruka's body turned to the side slightly. "Don't worry, I won't let any of my comrades die. I promise that I will bring all of you back alive," the blonde said and watched as Jean's hand stopped to shake. Iruka sighed and his body relaxed slightly. Connie and Sasha looked at each other and nodded. Marco looked more confident of himself, and even though Naruto couldn't see it, the blonde knew that Mikasa was smiling at him. "Remember what we have been taught our whole training course?" Naruto asked and they all nodded and answered in unison. "The Nohas ninjas always fight as one, win as one and die as one," they all said, and they all knew that the blonde was grinning under his mask. "Forget about the last one for today, because no one from my team is dying in today's battle," Dragon said and turned back to the battlefield. "Remember all that what we have been taught, individually and as a unit. Remember this all, and tonight we will be celebrating our first successful mission as Squad Omega." Explosions roared in the background of Naruto's speech, and soon enough the Anbu squad that was supposed to launch a surprise attack at their enemies appeared on the wall, shocking everyone. "What happened?" Naruto questioned as he walked over to captain of one of the squads. The Anbu captain, the rat, turned to Naruto and then back to the battlefield. Everyone on the walls waited for the report. "Our traps worked perfectly, taking down many of Takurin's. The problem lies within this, that they knew where we were hiding, so we had to pull out or fight against the army and die," Rat said, and Naruto said. "Do you know how many are coming this way?" Dragon asked and Rat nodded. "Around 200 of Takurin's are going to attack the gate, while 150 will attack the left side of the wall, with another 150 attacking the right side of the wall," Rat said, and an eagle mask Anbu shouted to Rat. "Taicho? They are coming and will be here in about 3 minutes." Eagle shouted and Sasha turned to Naruto. "What will we do now, Fuku Taicho?" she asked, her voice filled with fear. Dragon sighed and looked at his squad. "We will do what I told you before, we are gonna fight, win and then go celebrate our victory," Naruto said with such convictions that everyone, which was everyone on the wall, believed in his word and they all roared in approval. "Rat Taicho, I will get us the advantage in this battle," Naruto stated and prepared himself. The rat-masked Anbu looked at the younger Anbu with a raised eyebrow and asked his concern. "Simply, I am gonna rush them, kill as many as I can without getting injured and come back," Naruto said and looked at his squad, while Rat started to sputter that the blonde would die if he would do something like this. "I will be right back, don't do anything stupid, alright?" he asked, looking at Connie and Sasha who looked slightly embarrassed. Naruto turned back to the field but was stopped when Mikasa hugged him from behind. "Please, don't die, promise me that you won't die," she requested quickly, only so that Naruto could hear her. The blonde turned around and hugged her back while whispering. "I promise, I won't die," he promised and pulled back. The blonde walked to the edge of the wall and saw the Takurins coming out of the forest. He looked back at his squad and gave them a wave before jumping down from the wall. Everyone on the wall who heard the blonde's crazy plan watched as he landed on the earth and straightened his back. He crossed his hands in an X and took a deep breath. "Guy, thanks for giving me this scroll and helping me to learn this," the blonde thought. Energy started to build around Naruto as the very earth he was standing on started to break and debris that no longer could hold to the rest of the earth flew upward and turned into dust. Everyone on the wall was stunned by his show of power and the energy was still raising. Then they all heard him saying the name of the technique. Hachiman Tonko. Gate of opening, Kai. A green vapor formed around Naruto and intensive when he opened the next gate. Gate of healing, Kai. The blonde unsheathed his two ninjato and used his Doten chakra, which he gained from Mokuton, to make the swords weigh almost nothing. Suddenly Naruto vanished and on the place where he was left only a cloud of dust. Everyone's eyes turned to the large army of Takurins as they all saw the first line of them being cut down at extreme speed. Blood and limbs flew around everywhere as Naruto left only death and destruction in his wake. Naruto slashed with his left ninjato at a Takurin's neck, cutting it off. He turned around, kicked a Takurin, jumped back and cut off another head. He spun a whole circle, killing and maiming another 5 Takurins. He cut another Takurin in half, then rolled back and cut a Takurin's both legs off. Jumping up, he landed on one of his enemies and cut his head off and used his body as a springboard. He landed in front of another Takurin and cut off his forearm and then both legs. Dragon made a backflip and landed behind yet another Takarin and quickly cut the head off. He moved his head to the side and cut off a Takarin's arm with which he tried to kill Naruto. The blonde blocked a kick to his face and cut off the leg of the attacker. With a quick slash, he killed the next two Takarins and disappeared. He appeared back on the wall, the two gates already closed as he panted slightly. He threw the blood away from his two ninjato and sheathed them back. Everyone who witnessed the attack couldn't believe their eyes. Naruto was able to cut down at least 15 Takarins in about 30 seconds and not get any injuries besides two small, one on his left biceps and one on his right side. To say that everyone was speechless was an understatement. The most shocking thing was that the blonde didn't get even a drop of Takarins on himself, besides his blades. The rat shook his head and used chakra to make his voice louder so everyone could hear him, even those within the walls. "Prepare your strongest long-range jutsu," he shouted, and everyone started doing hand seals. The Takarins got closer and closer, but Rat didn't allow them to use their jutsu. "Wait. Wait. Wait," Rat shouted. The Takarins were almost on the gate when Rat shouted with all the power he held. "Fire." His voice carried for everyone to hear. As soon as he shouted this, everyone on the wall, Genin, Chunin, Jonin, Anbu, shot their strongest long-range jutsu at the incoming enemies. All those jutsu flew and started to cut through the ranks of their enemies. Explosions occurred down on the field, Takarins lost their lives, debris was sent flying everywhere. Blood and bodies painted the field in front of them. As soon as the last jutsu hit, everyone heard Rat's voice again. "Charge." He shouted and the gates opened, allowing every shinobi from inside to rush at their enemies. Everyone who was on the wall started to run it down to meet their enemies on the battlefield. As soon as the battle began, the lives were lost on both sides. Unexperienced ninjas who seek glory and fame rushed to Takarins alone and lost their lives at the beginning of the battle. The older and experienced grouped up and started to fight for their village. Dragon Buntai ran together in one of their formations, cutting through the enemies like a hot knife through butter. Naruto and Mikasa took the front, with the girl being on the right side. On Naruto's left behind ran Jin, behind who ran Sasha, they guarded their left flank. On Mikasa's right behind ran Iruka, with Connie being behind the dolphin mask Anbu, they protect the right flank. The rear was guarded by Marco, who made sure that no attack from behind came at them. This formation didn't last long because the Takarins saw how quickly and easily the group dispatched their enemies. Dragon Buntai became targeted and they had to change their tactics. The blonde Anbu made 4 hand seals with his left hand, but this weren't hand seals for jutsu, those hand seals were used to quickly communicate between Anbu. The blonde took out his 2 ninjato and ran at a Takarin who had his back to the blonde. Naruto cut the Takarin at the waist in half and blocked another Takarin's attack with both of his swords. Mikasa came from behind Naruto and cut the Takarin's arms off. Dragon thrust his left ninjato and killed his enemy. Ani sidestepped a Takarin's thrust and ducked under a followed slash. He pushed chakra into his ninjato to cut off the Takarin's left leg, but he had to roll back as another Takarin came and tried to kill him. The ant mask Anbu jumped into the air and made quick hand seals set. Kaiten. Phoenix Flower Jutsu. He spat out 5 small fireballs that made the 2 Takarins jump out of the way, but as soon as they landed, their heads were cut off by Sasha and Jin. Jin quickly took out 5 kunai and threw them to his left, killing a Takarin that was about to kill Iruka from behind. The dolphin mask Anbu parried a thrust with his ninjato and made a diagonal cut that killed his opponent. Marco moved his head to the side as the blade of his opponent missed his head. The black-haired Anbu caught the Takarin's extended hand and broke the elbow with a quick twist. He parried the second blade with his ninjato and elbowed the Takarin in his face. Marco dropped down and cut the Takarin's legs off. He rolled to the side and jumped over Iruka's shoulder and blocked a slash from Takarin. He used all his power and pushed the Takarin's blades up and launched a back kick to his enemy's gut, who doubled over. Marco didn't miss the chance and quickly thrust his ninjato in the Takarin's head, killing him. He looked around and saw that his team has regrouped. He jumped back and landed next to his 4 teammates. 4 incoming, Sasha warned, and not a second later 4 Takarins attacked the group. Iruka ducked under a kick and cut the Takara's second leg off. His opponent was able to land on one of his hands and pivot himself in the air so that he kicked Iruka in the mask. The brown-haired ninja had no time to block and was kicked away. Jin shot out a bolt of lightning from his palms at the Takarin attacking him, but his opponent dodged it and jumped into the air. The Takarin opened his mouth and fire shot out from it, but luckily Jin was able to jump back. The explosion shot out a few sharp debris, which flew at the fish mask Anbu. Jin was able to put his hand up to block the debris with his forearms guards, but one of the small stones was able to cut his on his shoulder, making it bleed slightly. Sasha parried another thrust from her opponent and ducked under a follow-up kick. She launched a raising kick to the Takarin's chin and sent his flying far away for her to make 3 hand seals. Suiton. Ripping Torrent Jutsu. Water spiraled in her right palm and she sent it towards her opponent, hitting him in his chest and making a fist-sized hole in it. Iruka ducked under a slash from the Takarin, and Connie jumped over his teammate's back, launching a roundhouse kick to their opponent's face. The Takarin stumbled back and blocked a diagonal slash from Connie and used his second blade to attack the Anbu. Iruka tried to block the thrust, but he had to jump out of the way as another Takarin shot a fireball at the dolphin mask Anbu. Connie looked with wide eyes as the blade came towards his face in slow motion. As the blade was about to cut straight into Connie's face, the limb fell, followed by the other hand and then the head. And fell on the ground as he watched Naruto extend a free hand to help him. He took it and quickly raised to his feet. "Thanks, Fuku Taicho," Connie said, and Naruto nodded back and vanished on the battlefield. The shaved boy shook his head and rushed to help Iruka, who used a Suiton jutsu to block another fireball sent at him. Connie quickly appeared behind the Takarin and with a precise slash, he cut the Takarin's head off. Marco jumped back as a Takarin tried to cut him with a double thrust. As soon as he landed he made several hand seals and took a deep breath. Futon. Vacuum sphere jutsu. He breathed out several small bullets that killed the Takarin attacking him. Mikasa blocked a slash, ducked under a kick, rolled back, jumped into the air, slashed off 2 head, parried a thrust, cut off another head. Threw 5 kunai, getting 3 kills from them, blocked another slash and cut off 2 arms. She was destroying the Takarins as Minato did with ninjas from Iowa. Well, maybe that was a bit too much praise, but the only people who were killing faster and more than her were Naruto and Rat. As she thought about the blonde, she started to pick her speed up. She wanted to show him that she had changed, that she no longer was the useless powerless girl she was when they first met. She wanted him to see how much she changed, so she could stand proudly next to him. She jumped over a Takarin, killed one that was before her, turned around and cut the second one in half. She made several hand seals and palmed the ground. Lightning shot from her hand and went through the ground and shocked 4 more Takarins that were rushing at her. She jumped out of the way as a large fireball exploded to her left, unluckily she wasn't fast enough and Mikasa was caught in the explosion. She skidded and rolled across the battlefield, dirting herself with blood and dirt that was all around this place. Her head hurt and her vision was blurry as she tried to stand up, but she fell back to her knees. Out of the corner of her eyes, she saw a Takarin rush at her, and then she noticed that her ninjato was missing. She took out a single kunai in her right hand since she cold lift her left hand. Mikasa's vision returned to normal, and she saw that it wasn't a single Takarin, there were 3 of them who were running at her. She gritted her teeth and rose to her feet. Lion prepared herself for a fight, but as the 3 jumped at her, Naruto appeared in front of her. With a quick motion, his left ninjato cut off the head of one of them. His right quickly followed, and he thrust it in the second's heart. Naruto let go off his right ninjato, turned around, took Mikasa's kunai, and then threw it over his shoulder at the third, hitting perfectly into his throat. "Are you alright, Mikasa-chan?" he asked and picked her up. She nodded mutely as she thought that once again she had to be saved by him. For a moment she doubted that she had any progress, that she was still a useless burden, but his next words destroyed those thoughts. "You are doing great, Lion, you have become strong, very strong," he said and picked up his ninjato. "Let's go, we will talk once we win this battle," he said, and she nodded. The feeling in her left arm slowly returned and she saw that a female Chunin used medical ninjutsu to heal her arm. Upon the wall, Shadow was standing and watching the battle from behind his black mask. Currently, Konoha's forces were having the advantage and thanks to Naruto's team, other Anbu squads and all the Jonin, less Konoha's ninjas were dying than he anticipated. He watched as Mikasa cut through the enemy's ranks until 3 Takarins shot out fireballs together, which created a larger than the normal orb of fire. Shadow looked into the reports given to him by his shadow clones and nodded. The right side of Wall Maria didn't even have a scratch yet. Shisui's team together with the rest of their forces were successfully defending the right side of the wall. They have been also attacked by Takarins with no of their beasts. It was strange, however, since all the beasts attacked the left side of the wall, where Itachi and his team were. The left side of the wall was still holding, but they were having the largest amount of casualties since the beasts are more unpredictable than Takarins, and it made it harder to kill them. Even so, if the things continued, then the Shiganshina district would survive to see another day. His thoughts were interrupted as a blood-curdling roar was heard through the whole battlefield, gaining the attention of every ninja in the vicinity. Most of the fight sustained as even Takarins turned to see what made this awful sound. There, away from the battlefield stood a single person, no, a monster, looking at every human with hungering gaze. The thing looked like a Takarin, but it was 5 meters tall and was bulking with muscles in addition to his ash-gray skin. Shadow observed the beast look at his comrades as he would be watching prey. Suddenly it shot forward the ninjas, faster than Shadow's eyes could follow, and started cutting through the ranks faster than Namikaze Minato did in the Third Shinobi War. At this rate, they all will be dead in a couple of minutes. The Anbu commander realized as he watched the carnage, rooted in place by fear. A demon has appeared and turned the tables around. Thanks for watching.